Chapter 1157 Yuan Song Pavilion. As soon as Lu Jun and Lu Yulian left, Yin Song chased all the servants away. In fact, even if he didn't chase them away, he knew what to do. Although he felt pity for the beautiful girl, what could they do as servants? Many things couldn't be done just because they wanted to. If they stubbornly insisted on doing it, the consequences would be extremely serious. His laughter echoed leisurely. Yin Song looked at Qin Xianxian, who was already under the effects of the drug, and flames surged in his heart. 3,000 words omitted. Gulp. Yin Song swallowed his saliva and stared blankly. The alcohol went straight to his head, and Yin Song's handsome face was incomparably red. Looking at the charming girl in front of him, he was also incomparably lustful. Rip. He directly tore his luxurious clothes into pieces, revealing his robust upper body. His eyes were fiery red like a beast's. He couldn't hold back anymore. But at this moment, young master, bad news, young master. Voices came one after another from afar, making Yin Song gnash his teeth. He abruptly turned his head and angrily glared. Who let you in? Young master, didn't you ask this old servant to go out and investigate? Old who looked helpless, but he also knew his young master's temper. Just by looking at the current situation, he knew that he was unlucky to have bumped into the spearhead again. Even if he was scolded, he could only swallow it. Breathing out through his nose, Yin Song's mind was in a mess. He angrily said, Are you King blind? Can't you see I'm busy? Old who lowered his head and didn't dare to talk back. Although he was scolded badly, he was already used to it. When Yin Song's anger calmed down a little, he quickly said, Something big happened outside. Young master, the Yin residence was set on fire. It seems that an enemy came looking for trouble. Suddenly, it quieted down a little. But in an instant, Yin Song angrily glared and roared. Why are you reporting such a trivial matter? With my father in charge, which blind person in the Yellow Crane continent dares to cause trouble in our Yin residence? They are courting death. Get out of here. Get out of here immediately. Yes, yes. Old who nodded and bowed. He hurriedly retreated, afraid of angering this temperamental young master. Yin Song's chest heaved up and down as he watched Old who's figure disappear. No one would be happy if the lust that had just been ignited was extinguished. Not to mention that Yin Song had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Since Qin Xianxian came back, he had been thinking about pursuing her. However, Qin Xianxian did not even see her once. After returning to the Qin Chamber of Commerce, he did not go out much. Usually, he would only be in solitary training. Well, one couldn't get always made one's heart itch. Not to mention that Qin Xianxian's appearance and temperament were extremely outstanding, so it was normal for Yin Song to be tempted. Cultivate? What's the use of cultivating? Yin Song's eyes looked towards Qin Xianxian's exquisite and translucent body, which was filled with an alluring vitality. In particular, her fully developed body caused Yin Song to be unable to take his eyes off it. The flame that had just been extinguished instantly rose once again. In the end, you've still become my Yin Song subordinate. The Qin Chamber of Commerce is nothing. My Yin family has power and influence. With a little trick, do you think you can escape from my palm? Rubbing his palms, Yin Song looked at the constantly twisting body. Under the tight, starry armor, her perfect figure was revealed without a doubt. Yin Song was like a wild beast at this moment. He could not wait to take off his pants and did not even have time to enter the room. Beauty, I'm coming. Yin Song was already burning with lust. With a face full of lust, he was ready to pounce on that fiery body like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. He could not wait to conquer Qin Xianxian immediately. But in an instant, boom, a monstrous aura descended from the sky like a thundercloud. You unfilial son! There was a furious roar, which carried a hint of resentment. A figure flew over from the distance like a shooting star. Between his brows, there was a surging heroic spirit. However, his brows were tightly knitted and his face was filled with rage. It was Yin Ziyuan. Whoosh! It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. That voice, that aura, caused In Song to feel a chill run down her spine. She turned around in shock and saw her father appear like a lion with a face full of anger. In Song's heart trembled, and that thing that was not much bigger than a bean shriveled up and became unable to rise again. Father. In Song was a little stupefied and trembling. Although In Song did all kinds of evil and was extremely foppish, he was still quite afraid of his father. When he heard the word father, In Ziyuan's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Although he hated In Song for not growing up and expected better from him, he only had one son, In Kong. Even in such a critical situation, he would rather abandon the entire In residence than leave In Song behind. Yuan, filial son. In Ziyuan glanced at Qin Qianqian, who was not far away. He raised his hand and slapped him furiously. At this moment, how could someone as experienced as him not know what had happened? Instead, In Song staggered after being hit. His left cheek instantly swelled up, and even his teeth were knocked out. His eyes were filled with shock, and his body trembled slightly. He had never seen his father so angry. Father! In Song's voice trembled. His naked appearance was both embarrassing and laughable. Unfilial son. How many times have I warned you not to touch some women? Is your head filled with grass? In Zon gnashed his teeth and roared angrily. Normally, I would turn a blind eye no matter how wild and unrestrained you are. But this time, do you know who you provoked? In Ziyuan's eyes widened and became bloodshot. The image of Lin Feng dressed in black and looking like an Azura from hell appeared in his mind. The fear in his heart instantly spread. You've caused a great disaster. In the end, his voice was already somewhat weak. Big brother Hong Zhan and second brother Yu Ming had both been killed. Even the entire In residence would be flattened. The price was too great. In Song was already dazed at this moment. He was completely sober, but he still didn't know what had happened. He had never seen his father so angry, and the feeling of powerlessness he revealed was even more like he was on the verge of collapse. In Song opened his mouth wide and didn't know what to say. Suddenly, he turned around to look at Qin Qianqian. In Song's muddled mind vaguely understood a little, and there was shock in his eyes. Was it because of Qin Qianqian? In Song was puzzled and confused. He was a little confused. What are you still looking at? After roaring for a while, In Ziyuan's anger was more or less vented. He stared at his son with disappointment. Although his heart ached, he still clenched his teeth. Quickly go with me. If you don't go now, it'll really be too late. In Song was completely confused. Go where? In Ziyuan's eyes flashed, and he grabbed In Kong. Go to the sky and find Master. But it's useless no matter who you find. A calm voice slowly sounded in midair. That calmness contained too many emotions. Anger, hatred, coldness, and an extremely dense killing intent. Lin Feng floated in midair. His eyes burned brightly, and a blazing flame rose in his hand. He was very calm, and there wasn't even the slightest fluctuation in his expression. However, no one knew that at this moment, Lin Feng's heart seemed to have been twisted into countless pieces, and the pain penetrated his heart and lungs. Rage had long since surpassed his rationality. Seeing the woman he loved suffer such a fate was undoubtedly like a ruthless stab to Lin Feng's heart. From the first time he saw Qin Qianqian again, Lin Feng had completely transformed into a devil. All you have to die. Lin Feng's voice was bone-chilling. The flame in his hand was also extremely cold, like the flames of hell burning fiercely. Who are you? In Song looked at Lin Feng with disdain. Except for his father, he wasn't afraid of anyone. Looking at Lin Feng, who was younger than him, he didn't put him in his eyes at all. However, In Song didn't see that his father, In Ziyuan, was completely pale and trembling. In Ziyuan's heart was filled with incomparable fear. It was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. This unremarkable black-clothed youth in front of him was really too terrifying. He had never seen such a terrifying martial artist. Like a demon. Saint, he was a saint. In Ziyuan kept telling himself, but he couldn't suppress that feeling of fear at all. The scene of Lin Feng instantly killing Hong Zhan appeared in his mind, and then he thought of how Yu Ming fled without even thinking, but Lin Feng had already escaped in the blink of an eye. Without a doubt, Yu Ming's death was already set in stone. Hong Zhan, Yu Ming, both of them were much stronger than him. But in front of Lin Feng, they were like infants who had just learned how to walk. What was he? Hey, I'm asking you a question. Yin Song was still muttering, his face full of arrogance, obviously not putting Lin Feng in his eyes at all. His naked body and swollen face was extremely laughable, showing off the might of a young master. But in an instant, another resounding slap, even heavier and fiercer than the last one. The right side of Yin Song's face immediately swelled up, and he fell flat on his face, looking shocked. Father Yi, kneel, unfilial son. Yin Ziyuan roared hoarsely. As he roared, he pressed Yin Song to the ground. Why aren't you kowtowing and apologizing to Senior? These actions and words made Yin Song completely dumbfounded, and he had no idea what was going on. Before he could react, his head was pressed down. Yin Ziyuan said hastily, "My son is ignorant and has offended Senior. I hope Senior can let my son go for the sake of my master, the Brown King. I, Yin Ziyuan, swear to the heavens that there won't be a next time. Senior, please give me a way out." As he spoke, Yin Ziyuan gritted his teeth. Bang! His body trembled, and he knelt on one knee. A dignified saint, the patriarch of the Yin estate, one of the top 3 forces in Yellow Crane Province, was actually kneeling. Yin Song was completely stunned at this moment, and he raised his head in shock, looking at the black-clothed youth in midair. The disdain and arrogance in his heart had long since turned into deep fear and terror. To be able to make his indomitable father kneel. How inconceivable was this? Who exactly was this black-clothed youth? I just came back on my first, so tired. Chapter 1158. Lowering his head slightly, Yin Ziyuan's eyes flashed. As the head of the Yin residence, Yin Ziyuan's strength and temperament were both beyond the reach of ordinary people. So what if he knelt down? In this place, there were only him, Yin Song, and Lin Feng. There was no fourth person. Even if he knelt down, he would not lose his so-called face as the head of the family. Yin Ziyuan was fully aware of Lin Feng's strength. It was definitely not something he could contend against at his level. Even if he used all his strength, he would only be a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Even people as strong as Hong Zhan and Yu Ming were killed, let alone a mere beginner-level saint. If Lin Feng wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. In front of such an expert, escaping was even more of a joke. Since this path did not work, he could only take another path. If the hard way did not work, he would use the soft way. The difference in strength could not be made up. He could also see through Lin Feng's methods. He was firm, resolute, and straightforward. This kind of martial artists were usually tough, but their weakness was most likely their heart. They were tough on the outside, but soft on the inside. They valued relationships and loyalty. This could be seen from how Lin Feng completely ignored everything in order to save this woman. Anger for a woman. Yin Song had already run out of ideas. His naked body felt cold for the first time. It was a coldness that came from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, Lin Feng's aura was completely exposed. An extremely dense killing intent covered everything. The blood-red light in his eyes was not as benevolent as Yin Ziyuan had gambled on. From the beginning, Yin Song's ending was already decided. Die! Lin Feng's eyes shone with an extremely cold light. In his self-state, his eyes shone as if a crack had opened in the sky. An extremely dense power accompanied by an austere aura flew towards Yin Song like a fiery red sparrow. It was formless but extremely terrifying power. Chi! Yin Song's mouth was wide open. His eyes were extremely dazed. That was a power that far exceeded the limits of human martial artists. Lin Feng floated in the air. The austere aura in his eyes shone brilliantly. Pong! Yin Song's head instantly exploded, and blood splattered everywhere. Yin Ziyuan, who was beside him, only felt a terrifying aura descend upon him. Just as he was shocked, blood had already splattered all over his face, and his lifeless expression was completely unaware of what had just happened. However, there was one thing he was sure of, and it was that the aura of his only son, Yin Song, had already been obliterated. He was completely and utterly dead. He had been killed right under his nose. Bang! The headless body lost its center of gravity and fell to the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise. It was extremely quiet. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Yin Ziyuan was still kneeling on the ground, but his expression changed drastically. He was completely caught off guard. He was so close to him, but he didn't even know how his son died. He only felt a terrifying aura descend, bringing with it an austere aura. It was already over. There was no mercy. There was no sympathy at all. You reap what you sow. Lin Feng's voice was cold as ice. He floated in the air, and the intense radiance in his eyes had already disappeared. What Yin Ziyuan didn't know was that Lin Feng hadn't even used his true trump card against the senior law enforcer of the ancient race, Lei Xiong. This was the first time he used the bestowment ability of the 70% Saint Empress Eyes. If it was just a small matter, perhaps he could still let it go. However, what Yin Song had committed was an unforgivable crime. He dared to have designs on Qin Qianqian, and even used such despicable means. This had completely touched Lin Feng's reverse scale. The reverse scale of a dragon. Who could tolerate this? Who could tolerate this? Everyone has the right to punish such a perverted thief. Lin Feng's gaze was cold as he looked at Yin Ziyuan. Because of your indulgence, this situation has resulted in today's situation. As a father, you have an unshirkable responsibility. Break one of your arms, and I will let you live. Otherwise, Lin Feng's eyes shot out. I will kill you as well. It was an undisguised threat. Facing a saint was like stepping on an ant. Lin Feng's words made Yin Ziyuan's face turn pale, and his body trembled. He had just experienced the pain of losing his son, and now another order came. Yin Ziyuan gritted his teeth, but he knew that Lin Feng wouldn't lie. Should he fight to the death, take revenge for his son, and preserve his last bit of self-respect? Or should he submit? Thank you, Senior. Yin Ziyuan gritted his teeth, and a radiance flashed in his eyes, carrying a trace of decisiveness. In an instant, a cold radiance fell, accompanied by a crisp sound. Crack! His left arm fell to the ground with a trace of blood. Yin Ziyuan's face turned pale. He had chosen to protect himself. Why? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. What a formidable person. You are indeed worthy of being the clan leader. Although he was surprised by Yin Ziyuan's decisiveness, he was also slightly impressed. This decisiveness was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. His son had just been killed, and he was threatened to cut off one of his arms to save his life. An ordinary martial artist would have long lost his rationality. However, Yin Ziyuan was flexible, and his courage and state of mind were extremely strong. If this person was left alive, he would definitely be a disaster. Originally, he wanted to infuriate him so that he could get rid of him. But he didn't expect Yin Ziyuan to be so shrewd. All right, Lin Feng's expression was calm. He muttered, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Since Yin Song is dead, this matter will come to an end. From now on, we will not interfere with each other's business. Lin Feng looked at Yin Ziyuan with burning eyes, and his voice was cold. But if you don't give up, you won't be so lucky next time. Since things had already come to this, he naturally couldn't go back on his words. Now get lost immediately. Lin Feng looked at Qin Qianqian, who was already burning and panting, and shouted. If it wasn't for Yin Ziyuan kneeling, he would have already killed him. Similarly, he would also flatten the entire Yin residence to avenge Qianqian. However, the Yin residence's martial artists were indeed innocent. Thank you, Senior. Yin Ziyuan's expression was extremely unsightly. It was a mixture of green and white. It was as if his heart was in pain, but it was unknown if it was because of the pain of losing his arm or his son. Glancing at Yin Song's remains, Yin Ziyuan's heart was broken into pieces. He clenched his remaining right fist tightly, and his entire body trembled as he left. He was deeply unwilling. Even more so, he hated Lin Feng to the bone. However, what could he do? In the Douling world, the strong were respected. Even if he was a saint, he was superior and omnipotent in the eyes of ordinary people. However, there was always a mountain higher than another. In order to survive, in order to take revenge, he could only forcefully endure this. In Ziyuan supported the entire clan with his own body. What kind of situation had he not seen before? A real man knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Even if his heart was in pain, even if Lin Feng was as powerful as the heavens, but Lin Feng, I will definitely take revenge for my son and my arm. In Ziyuan's eyes were bloodshot. Looking at the departing figure, Lin Feng's eyes were bright. How could he not know what In Ziyuan was thinking? It was not difficult to estimate his temperament. After today's battle, even if he didn't destroy the In residence, the In residence's reputation had been destroyed by him. In addition, he had lost an arm and killed his only son. As the patriarch and father, if In Ziyuan could swallow this, he would not have become a saint. As a saint, his temperament must be extremely firm. It was only a matter of time before he sought revenge. It was also inevitable. However, so what? The current him did not care about this kind of revenge at all. He could let In Ziyuan go today. In the future, he would also have the means and ability to completely destroy In Ziyuan. The current him was no longer the ignorant kid who had just stepped into the Vermilion Bird Continent. He already possessed true strength, the strength to control his own fate. Take care of yourself, Lin Feng said softly. He did not care about Emir, In Ziyuan. If he dared to find trouble with him, only death would await him. Right now, there was only one thing left. In an instant, whoosh, Lin Feng's figure flashed and appeared beside Qin Qianqian. Looking at the beautiful body and smelling the familiar fragrance, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a gentle light. He gently hugged the hot body and muttered, "A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood." The current Qin Qianqian was no longer the little girl of the past. The naivety on her face had disappeared and was replaced by a beautiful temperament. It was like a budding flower that was about to bloom. Now it was blooming brilliantly. She was big and thin. Her skin was lustrous and elastic. Her perfect figure was rather proud under the starry armor. Her appearance was even better than a few years ago. The current Qianqian was not much inferior to Yuma. However, I didn't expect to see you again. Lin Feng smiled calmly. Back then, when he saved Qianqian, she was also drugged like this. The gears of time seemed to have overlapped again. It was quite luxurious to have a saint bodyguard. With Hong Ling guarding, Lin Feng did not need to worry about anything else. Reuniting with Qianqian after a long separation was better than being newly married. Hugging the familiar body and smelling the enchanting fragrance, his heart was filled with indescribable warmth. Holding the plump softness, the touch of skin was like a rope that was slowly ignited. In the small house of the Yuan Song Pavilion, under the stimulation of the drug, a man and a woman hugged each other tightly, greedily absorbing each other, endlessly demanding this episode is about to end. Officially entering the last volume of the Douling world, the Battle of the Pinnacle. Chapter 1159. The Yin residence was in chaos. 2 saints were killed one after another, shocking all the Yin residence's martial artists. Patriarch In Ziyuan ran away without a care for his reputation, shattering the last hope of the Yin residence's martial artists. The martial artists, who were already scared out of their wits by Lin Feng, instantly fled like locusts. It was a scene of turmoil and chaos. Run for your lives. It's over. The Yin residence is finished. Run as far as you can. If you don't leave now, you'll be dead if that devil comes back. More than 100,000 martial artists had completely lost their backbone. All that was left in their minds was that terrifying black figure and the flames in his hands, as terrifying as the flames of hell. To them, it was far more terrifying than they could imagine. Out of the 3 saints, 2 had died and 1 had escaped. It had happened in the blink of an eye. It was hard to imagine how strong this warrior named Lin Feng was. Even the Saint Patriarch In Ziyuan ran away like a rat crossing the street, let alone them. The people's hearts were scattered. The Yin residence's signboard had collapsed. Only one person was still standing in the same place, confused. It's over just like that? Ji Xia hadn't recovered from a shock. It happened too suddenly. Yin Ziyuan ran away in fear, and Lin Feng killed the other saint almost instantly. He was toying with the so-called saint like a cat toying with a mouse. Until now, the Yin residence's martial artists, who were arrogant and bossy before, were now running away with all their might. It was all because of one person, Lin Feng. Is he really Lin Feng? Ji Xia was speechless. He felt that he was too different from the Lin Feng in his mind. The Lin Feng in front of him was as tall as the sky. Unfathomable. Too different. Ji Xia sighed softly. He knew that Lin Feng was still Lin Feng. It was just that he had reached a level that he could only look up to. Ji Xia smiled. He was happy for Lin Feng and Qianqian. At least no matter what, they were safe. With Lin Feng around, nothing will happen to Qianqian. Ji Xia smiled and finally felt relieved. The current Lin Feng was even more trustworthy than when he was in Yanling Prefecture. Yuansong Pavilion. After a round of passionate lovemaking, a strong flame of love burned in their bodies. Naked, Lin Feng gently hugged Qianqian and caressed her hair. A faint fragrance wafted into his nose. They snuggled up to each other without making any sound. They could only hear each other's heartbeats and breathing. Yet they felt incomparably blissful, as if they were the only ones left in the world. At this moment, silence was better than words. After a long time, I've made you suffer, Qianqian, Lin Feng said softly. It's not bitter at all. Qianqian smiled sweetly, her face filled with happiness. Because I know that Linda Ge will definitely come. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. I will make all those who bullied you pay the heaviest price. As soon as he said that, Lin Feng felt that the beauty in his arms seemed to have paused for a moment. He asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Qianqian's eyes showed some hesitation. She forced a smile and said, "No need, Linda Ge. It's enough as long as you're by my side." Although her voice was light and had a hint of satisfaction, it also contained a hint of fear and helplessness. Others might not be able to hear it, but Lin Feng knew it very well. As he hugged the soft and smooth body that he dreamed of, he felt even more guilty and pitiful. When she left him in Yanling Prefecture, it was like this. Qianqian was always worried about him. She was afraid of implicating him and troubling him, so she would rather bear it alone. Now, she was still like this. Nothing had changed. Don't worry, Qianqian. Lin Feng smiled. I'm much stronger now than when I was in Yanling Prefecture. Really? Qianqian looked up playfully and said in surprise, Linda Ge, are you already at cosmic sector level? Lin Feng shook his head. Qianqian was surprised, but she still smiled sweetly. With Linda Ge's talent, he'll be able to break through very soon. Lin Feng smiled but did not explain. He nodded and said, let's go. We'll talk when we get back. This is not the place to talk. Although there was the protection of a red silk, this was the Yin residence after all. It was not his own home. He felt a little uncomfortable. Qianqian was surprised. She only reacted now and looked around. She asked curiously, where is this place? Yin residence. Lin Feng replied. Qianqian opened her mouth wide in shock. She was extremely shocked. Yin residence? Why are we in Yin residence? Linda Ge, are you joking? It's a long story. Lin Feng smiled. Let's go. Brother Ji is still waiting for us. Brother Ji is here too. Qianqian was confused. They stepped out of Yuansong Pavilion. Qianqian was confused. This place was quite unfamiliar. She looked around and suddenly saw a pool of blood not far away. There was also a naked body without a head. She exclaimed, that's a person who deserves to die. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He pulled Qianqian's delicate hand, and his figure flashed. Come, let me introduce you to someone. She's Hong Ling, my companion through life and death. Qianqian, my fiancée. Lin Feng looked at Hong Ling and introduced her. Although he could communicate with Hong Ling telepathically, he wanted to tell Qianqian that he was true to her. As expected, Qianqian's face was filled with happiness. She smiled sweetly. Hello, Sister Hong Ling. Hello, madam. Hong Ling was still expressionless. She bowed slightly to show the difference between master and servant. Madam? Qin Shanqian was a little surprised. She looked at Lin Feng in confusion. It's nothing. It's just a title. Lin Feng smiled faintly and explained. Although he had told Hong Ling a few times, she still liked to call him master. It was as if this idea was deeply ingrained. As time passed, he let her be. Anyway, it was just a title. He had never treated her as an outsider. Oh, Qin Shanqian nodded. She looked at Hong Ling with her beautiful eyes and felt distracted. Then, she looked at Lin Feng. Lindigo, Sister Hong Ling is so powerful. Yes, she broke through to the saint level not long ago. Lin Feng answered casually. Bang! Qin Shanqian's head shook. Qin Shanqian felt as if she was suffocating. Her mouth was half open and she could not close it. Did she hear wrongly? Let's go, Shanqian, Lin Feng said softly. He pulled Qin Shanqian, who was completely confused, and turned into a shooting star and flew away. Jixia was still waiting. He sat cross-legged on the ground and rested his chin on his hand. He was bored to death, but also worried. Although he was very confident in Lin Feng's strength, which was enough to make a saint bow down to him, wasn't a little too long? Did something happen? Jixia's heart was beating like a drum. Although he was puzzled, he did not wander around. Because Lin Feng asked him to wait here before leaving, Jixia was obedient. It was better to avoid trouble. He knew his own strength. He would only be a burden if he followed behind Lin Feng. Suddenly, swoosh, there was a sound of something breaking through the air. Jixia looked up and saw a familiar black figure approaching. He was instantly delighted. Lin Feng was finally back. The familiar figure beside Lin Feng was Qin Shanqian. Phew, Jixia exhaled softly. He finally felt relieved and smiled. Seeing the two of them return safely, there was nothing more worth being happy about. At this moment, not only Lin Feng, but Qin Shanqian was also overjoyed to see Jixia. Senior brother, why are you here? Qin Shanqian immediately asked as soon as he landed. To save you. Jixia smiled as if relieved of a burden. You don't know how anxious we were just now. Fortunately, Lin Feng was here to save you. Qin Shanqian was stunned. Senior brother, you mean? I was kidnapped to the Yin residence? Yes. Jixia nodded in confusion. You don't know? He could not help but look at Lin Feng in confusion. It's nothing. Just a small matter. Lin Feng smiled faintly and glossed over it. Since Shanqian could not remember what happened before, there was no need to mention it again to avoid leaving an unpleasant memory. This is a small matter? Jixia grinned and shook his head speechlessly. The entire Yin residence is about to be torn down by you. Jixia looked at Qin Shanqian and gave her a thumbs up. His eyes flashed. Shanqian, you don't know. For you, Lin Feng was furious. He would kill anyone who stood in his way. I have never seen Lin Feng so crazy. TSK, TSK. Qin Shanqian bit her lips and secretly looked at Lin Feng with her beautiful eyes. She felt sweet in her heart. No matter which woman it was, when she saw her sweetheart giving up everything for her, even at the risk of his life, this feeling would be sweet to the bottom of her heart. Suddenly, Qin Shanqian was slightly stunned and reacted. Ah, this is the Yin residence. There's so many cosmic sector-level powerhouses. Qin Shanqian suddenly stopped talking and looked around, but there was no one around. Don't look around. They were already scared out of their wits by Lin Feng. Run as far as you can. Jixia smiled. I'm afraid there isn't even a fly in the entire Yin residence now. It can't be. Qin Shanqian's beautiful face flashed with extreme surprise. Doesn't the Yin residence have a few thousand martial artists? A few thousand? Jixia smiled and said, Lin Feng killed more than a few thousand. To be precise, the Yin residence should have more than a few 100,000 martial artists. When a voice entered her ears, Qin Shanqian was completely stunned. She looked at Jixia in disbelief. Linda Gu killed a few thousand martial artists? That's right. Big Sister Hong Ling. Qin Shanqian had just thought of this when Jixia's voice sounded again. His eyes were bright. Junior sister, you didn't see the scene just now. In order to save you, Lin Feng barged into the Yin residence alone. He set fire to the city and killed 100 people with each step. He took on the entire Een residence by himself. No one was his match. Even the 3 saints, 2 died and 1 escaped. They couldn't even take half a move from Lin Feng. Now, the Een residence's patriarch, Een Ziyuan, is scared witless. The entire Een residence has already scattered like birds and beasts. I'm afraid it won't be long before the entire Crane County will be in an uproar. Ji Xia smiled faintly and looked at Qin Qianqian, who had already fallen into a daze. It was as if he was telling the truth. He said softly, "Congratulations, junior sister. You made the right choice back then. You've really found the ideal husband for you to entrust your life to." One more chapter. Chapter 1160. Just as Ji Xia had said, Crane County was in an uproar. It was not an ordinary uproar, but a real earthquake. An earthquake that shook the entire county. The Een residence was not only the big shot of Crane County, but it was also one of the top 3 forces in the entire Yellow Crane continent. The Een residence's fire had already attracted attention. Later on, more than 100,000 martial artists of the Een residence fled in panic, as if it was the end of the world. This further proved everything. The Een residence was about to collapse. Een Ziyuan had fled in public, and the consequences were far more serious than expected, because he was not only the head of the clan, but also a saint. He was the spiritual pillar of the entire Een residence. The Een residence provoked someone they shouldn't have and was annihilated. Tens of thousands of martial artists died, and the head of the clan, Een Ziyuan, fled. The Een residence has collapsed. I heard that only 1 person annihilated the Een residence. Are you kidding? Is it true? 1 person can annihilate the entire Een residence? The one who lied is not human. It's a black-clothed youth in his 20s. I heard that his name is Lin Feng. Damn, he annihilated 2 saints in a row? It's true. All the martial artists of the Een residence saw it. Moreover, they were 2 mid-level saints. Damn, is he a human or a monster? Rumors were spreading in Crane County. In fact, this was not a rumor. It was absolutely true. More than 100,000 pairs of eyes had seen the battle of the Een residence clearly. 10 spread to 100, 100 to 10,000. Everyone knew about it. Everyone was trying to find out where this Lin Feng came from, but they knew nothing. Who would have thought that Lin Feng was an expert from the distant Vermilion Bird continent? Lin Feng's name caused another uproar. At this moment, Lin Feng was returning to the Qin Chamber of Commerce with Qianqian and Ji Xia. Lin Feng did not know that he had caused a sensation in the city. In fact, even if he knew, it did not matter. Lin Feng had never cared about fame. As long as he could save Qianqian safely and prevent any harm to his beloved, that was enough. What did anything else matter? Why are you looking at me like that? Lin Feng smiled at Qin Qianqian. Brother Lin, are you really a saint? Qin Qianqian was still in a daze after coming out of the Een residence. He couldn't react. The shock that Lin Feng gave her was simply too great. She still found it hard to believe that in just a few short years, Lin Feng's strength had actually reached such a terrifying level. Annihilating the Een clan with a single hand, annihilating a saint with a single move, and causing the Een clan's patriarch, Een Ziyuan, to flee in panic. This was simply unimaginable. Yes, a high-level saint. Lin Feng smiled faintly, his eyes hazy. However, in these few short years, he had indeed experienced a lot. You have to put in some effort. You have to reap some rewards. If you want to know, I'll tell you everything when we get back. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't need to hide anything from Qianqian. Not only was she his beloved woman, but she was also his fiancée, his family. Yes, yes. Qianqian nodded, her eyes filled with curiosity. Ji Xia's lips curled into a smile. He was happy for Qin Qianqian. However, when his gaze landed on Lin Feng, he could faintly feel the distance between them. He sighed softly in his heart. He also wanted to become as powerful as Lin Feng. That day, for the same dream, he walked the lonely path of cultivation and left the Yanling residence for the land of the 9 states. These few years, with Qianqian's help, he had improved by leaps and bounds. However, he was still a distance away from the star sector level, not to mention becoming a legendary saint. This was the dream of almost every star sector level martial artist. However, the so-called saint was like an ant in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng was already a high-level saint, and he probably wasn't as simple as a high-level saint. What's wrong, Brother Ji? Lin Feng turned around and looked at Ji Xia. With his keen senses, he could naturally sense the change in Ji Xia's emotions and that almost imperceptible sigh. Nothing. I'm happy for you guys. Ji Xia smiled and quickly concealed the melancholy in her heart. However, that fleeting sadness could not escape Lin Feng's eyes. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Thank you for taking care of Qian these few years, Brother Ji. What are you saying? Qian is my junior sister. Ji Xia smiled. Moreover, I'm just chatting with Qian to relieve her boredom. If you really want to talk about it, Qian has helped me a lot. Stupid senior brother. Qian blinked. Don't you understand what Lindigo means? Ji Xia was startled and a little stunned. It's like this, Brother Ji. Lin Feng smiled. I plan to hold a wedding with Qian here and then bring her back to the place where I grew up, the kingdom of Meru. You don't have any relatives or friends here. If you want, you can come with us. You can follow Qian back to the kingdom of Meru or go to my family's Lin clan in the Vermilion Bird Continent. What do you think? He owed Ji Xia this favor. That day, he had asked Ji Xia to take care of Qian, and he had always done his best. Including this time, even if there was a slim chance of survival, Ji Xia still did not turn back. Whether it was for himself or Qian, he would help Ji Xia. Really? Ji Xia widened her eyes and was instantly pleasantly surprised. She did not expect happiness to come so suddenly. Her greatest dream and goal was to embark on the true path of cultivation and become stronger. Now that Lin Feng had said this, it was equivalent to a great opportunity crashing down on her. What could be better than this? I'm willing. Of course I'm willing. Ji Xia seemed to be afraid that Lin Feng would go back on his word. She nodded repeatedly. Her surprised and flustered appearance caused Qian to burst into laughter. Lin Feng revealed a faint smile. When one became stronger, not only would they be able to control their own fate, they would also be able to change the fate of others. They would either be enemies or friends. To him, helping Ji Xia might be as easy as lifting his hand. However, to him, it was enough to change his life. Oh, that's right. Qian, you said you were directly knocked out? Lin Feng asked with a frown. Amen. I don't know what happened either. My entire body felt weak, and I soon fainted, Qian recalled. After that, it was as if I had a dream. I don't know how I was kidnapped to the Yin residence. After that, I met you, Lindigo. Lin Feng and Ji Xia glanced at each other and nodded thoughtfully. They were unable to obtain any further evidence from Qian. However, that did not matter. After all, they had more or less come to a conclusion from Lu Fei. Furthermore, their conjecture had been verified. They had indeed found Qian in the Yin residence. Although they could not prove that Lu Jun and Lu Yulian kidnapped Qian, they at least knew that the two of them harbored sinister intentions and schemed against Qian. Lin Feng, what do you plan to do? Ji Xia asked. A sharp light flashed through Lin Feng's eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, he said, kill. Although his voice was calm, it was filled with killing intent. Ji Xia could not help but tremble. However, Lu Jun and Lu Yulian will definitely quibble. Yin Song is already dead. We do not have any concrete evidence. If we kill them, wouldn't it be a bit evidence? Lin Feng smiled calmly. Let's just kill them. Even if they didn't do it, it's an indisputable fact that they have tried to seduce Qian. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. This alone is enough for them to die tens of thousands of times. He would never let the two of them get away with it. Ji Xia was startled. Then, he laughed involuntarily. However, he was calculating according to common sense again. He had forgotten that Lin Feng did not need to worry so much. That's right. So what if he killed them? So what if the Golden Sword sect came looking for him? He could even wipe out the Yin residence, which was ranked top 3 in the Yellow Crane continent. What was a mere Golden Sword sect to him? They were just clowns. This is strength. Ji Xiao was envious. He looked at Lin Feng with deep admiration. He did not know when Lin Feng would possess such strength. He was so strong that he could ignore everything. He was so strong that he could completely change his fate and truly stand at the peak of the Douling world. As they spoke, the three of them had almost reached the Qin Chamber of Commerce. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although they were far away, he saw a familiar figure standing in front of the Chamber of Commerce waiting for him. It was the bald youth who had led the way for him. "Greetings, Saint." The bald youth knelt on one knee and said excitedly. The Yin residents had caused a stir. If he could not even guess Lin Feng's identity, he would be too stupid. However, the bald youth did not expect Lin Feng to have such a powerful background. "You may rise." Lin Feng nodded. "Is there something you need from me?" The bald youth nodded. "Yes, Saint. I have asked around and finally obtained some useful information." He glanced at Qin Qianqian and bowed. "Greetings, Madam Saint. Congratulations on escaping safely." Qin Qianqian blushed. Ji Xia could not help but laugh. "You came a little late. I'm afraid you won't be able to get the tenfold reward." Previously, Lin Feng had promised the bald youth that as long as he could obtain any information related to Qianqian, he would be able to get tenfold reward, which was 100,000 star crystals. However, now that Qianqian was safe, the tenfold reward was naturally gone. The bald youth blushed and shook his head. "It is my honor to be able to work for Saint. Moreover, I have already taken a lot. I still have a few hundred star crystals left from the 10,000 star crystals." Lin Feng nodded. "Then you are here for—" "It's like this, Saint." The bald youth said, "I heard that young Master Yin and Lu Jun had a private agreement. It's about Madam." The bald youth hesitated for a moment. He cleverly avoided the sensitive words and said, "A few hours ago, Lu Jun and Lu Yulian had indeed just left the Yin residence." He did not say it clearly, but everything was connected and on the verge of being revealed. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He clenched his right fist. His expression did not change, but the murderous intent in his heart intensified. It was indeed as Lu Fei had said. It was Lu Jun and Lu Yulian, the adulterous couple, who were behind this. They were actually so heartless and shameless. "Good, very good." Lin Feng's voice was cold. The surging oppressive aura made Ji Xia, who was beside him, tremble. She secretly felt sad for Lu Jun and Lu Yulian. However, they brought this upon themselves. "There is another piece of news. Saint, it is related to you," the bald youth said as if he had thought of something. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Chapter 1161. Crane County, Sacred Tower. Located in a remote area of Crane County, it was surrounded by fog all year round. Outside the thick white fog, there were countless cultivators kneeling. Some were strong, some were weak, some were Star Lords, some were Star Domain Lords, and even some were Star Radiance ranks. However, every cultivator's face was filled with sincerity. Although they were black, they didn't make a single sound. The strongest cultivator of Crane County lived in the Sacred Tower. St. Fire Glory, Lifephone. "Great-grandfather, please uphold justice for Ziyuan." Yin Ziyuan cried as he knelt on the ground. Although he was a man, Ziyuan didn't care about his bearing in the slightest. Moreover, he wasn't completely acting. The death of his only son, Yin Song, had indeed caused him to be heartbroken, and a small portion of the tears of hatred that he shed were real. In front of Yin Ziyuan stood an old man with a red beard. His face was red, and his eyes were glaring angrily. His body seemed to be on fire, and his aura was surging. He was the master of the Sacred Tower, Lifephone. In the Yellow Crane County, where the power struggle was intense, the Yin residents could be ranked in the top 3. The true pillar was Lifephone. Although outsiders didn't know, the saints and the people in power knew that Lifephone and Yin Ziyuan's grandfather were sworn brothers. They had a deep relationship with the Yin residents. "Get up! How can a man cry?" Lifephone frowned. Although he was scolding, there was a different kind of kindness in his tone. No matter how strong Yin Ziyuan was now, in Lifeng's eyes, he was still the little guy who followed his grandfather back then. Yes, great-grandfather. Yin Ziyuan stood up and pursed his lips. His eyes were filled with hatred. Although Lai Feng looked rough, he was actually very meticulous. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes as he said, "You're saying that the black-clothed youth, Lin Feng, doesn't have a celestial body with him, but a star seal. Hong Zhan and Yu Ming couldn't even take one move from him?" Yes. Yin Ziyuan's eyes flashed with fear. This person is really strong. If he wasn't so far away, I wouldn't have asked great-grandfather to come out. Shaking his head, Lai Feng said in a deep voice, "If it's really as you said, then this kid's strength is unfathomable. Even I might not be his match." Lai Feng's eyes burned. He knew his own limits. Even if his strength far surpassed Hong Zhan and Yu Ming's, it was still impossible for him to take their lives in one move. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Ziyuan immediately said anxiously, "Grandfather, don't worry, I didn't say I wouldn't help." Lai Feng raised his hand and shouted, "Before third brother died, he gave the Yin Manor to me. Regardless of who is right or wrong in this matter, the Yin Manor is being trampled on and is on the verge of collapse. How can I remain indifferent?" How about this? You rest in the pagoda for a few days. I will discuss this matter with my second brother before making a decision. Yin Ziyuan's eyes lit up when he heard that, and he was pleasantly surprised. The second brother that Lai Feng spoke of was the current ruler of Yellow Crane Continent, Brown King. "Thank you, Grandpa." Yin Ziyuan bowed his head gratefully. If he could get Brown King to help, together with Grandpa Lai Feng, no matter how heaven-defying this Lin Feng was, he would not be able to escape death. "Song father will definitely avenge you." Yin Ziyuan's eyes were filled with hatred. Outside the Qin Chamber of Commerce. Sacred Tower? Saint Huiyao Lai Feng? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. "Yes, Saint." The bald youth nodded. "Junior has received news that someone saw Yin Ziyuan pass through the thick fog and step into the Sacred Tower. Rumor has it that the owner of the Sacred Tower, Lai Feng, has a great relationship with the Yin family. It seems that Yin Ziyuan went to the Sacred Tower this time to ask Saint Huiyao Lai Feng to come out and deal with you." "I understand." Lin Feng nodded indifferently. His casual expression caused the bald youth to be slightly stunned. Ji Xiao whispered, "Lin Feng, this Saint Huiyao Lai Feng is not simple. I heard that he has a close relationship with the owner of Yellow Crane Continent, Brown King. Furthermore, his strength is far above other saints." "It's all right." Lin Feng smiled slightly, causing Ji Xiao to pause and smile bitterly. "Let's go. It's time to settle this score." With a faint glow in his eyes, Lin Feng opened his hands and clenched them slightly, bringing out a faint killing intent. To him, Lu Jun and Lu Yulian were the most important matters. As for Yin Ziyuan, he had already warned him. If he still refused to give up and stubbornly persisted in going about things the wrong way, then he would be the one to die. The so-called reinforcements were just a few more to accompany him to the grave. He did not care about mere saints. Good news. Lin Feng looked at the bald young man with a faint smile on his face. Light flashed in his hand, and in an instant, a large amount of light appeared. Ji Xia and Qin Xianqian both widened their eyes in shock. A total of 100,000 star crystals. What a huge amount of wealth. However, to Lin Feng, it was just a drop in the ocean. Looking at the bald youth, Lin Feng was calm. Although the news was not much, he could feel his sincerity. Moreover, he could save Qianqian and find the culprit. At this moment, he was in a good mood. The bald young man was also stunned. His expression was a little confused, and his expression kept changing in an instant. Plop! The bald youth knelt down on the ground, causing Lin Feng to be slightly stunned. Ji Xia and Qin Xianqian were also confused. They did not know what had happened. "I don't want the 100,000 star crystals." The bald youth shook his head vigorously. He suddenly looked up and bit his lips. "I beg you to take me as your disciple. I can even be your nominal disciple." Seeing that Lin Feng's expression did not change, the bald youth quickly said, "Even if you want me to run errands, do odd jobs, or be a servant, it's fine. I just hope that you can let me follow you. 100,000 star crystals just to buy a chance. Lin Feng looked at the bald youth with sparkling eyes. He did not know about the aptitude of this poor youth. However, he had cultivated to the star sector level at such a young age without any background. Even if his aptitude was not top-notch, it was at least above average. However, this was nothing. There were many such cultivators in the entire Douling world. The most valuable thing about him was that he knew how to choose and grasp opportunities. He would rather give up 100,000 star crystals. This was a huge sum of money that was enough for him to have enough food and clothing and a worry-free future. This youth was very smart. "What's your name?" Lin Feng asked. The bald youth's eyes instantly lit up. He quickly said, "My surname is Wu, and my first name is Dong. You can call me Dong." Then, as if afraid that Lin Feng would go back on his word, Wu Dong quickly kowtowed. "Thank you for your help, senior." Qin Qianqian covered her mouth and smiled. She looked at Jixia. "Senior brother, he's much smarter than you." Jixia immediately blushed. His reaction just now was completely incomparable to Wu Dong's. "Dong, you can follow Qianqian from now on." Lin Feng nodded. He also had a plan in mind. Although Wu Dong was not very strong, he had barely reached the star sector level. In addition, he was quite smart. If he stayed with Qianqian, they could take care of each other in the kingdom of Meru. After all, Jixia still seemed to prefer to stay in the Douling world to cultivate more. "Yes, senior." Wu Dong was overjoyed. He quickly got up and bowed 45 degrees to Qianqian. Dong greets madam." The sudden change made Qin Qianqian a little flustered. "You don't have to be so polite. Then, you can follow me." Then, she turned to look at Lin Feng and couldn't help but chide him. Her cute appearance made Lin Feng smile. He stroked Qin Qianqian's little head and nodded slightly. "Let's go." Although his voice was gentle, it carried a faint murderous aura. Slightly puzzled, Lu Jun followed Lu Yulian's finger and turned his head. Instantly, his eyes widened. In front of them, a youth in black was sitting calmly like a ghost. They didn't know when he entered the house. "Are you done?" Lin Feng's voice sounded indifferently. He didn't even look at the two of them. He picked up his teacup and sipped as if nothing had happened. Chapter 1162. In the pavilion in the inner garden, hundreds of flowers bloomed, emitting a mesmerizing fragrance. The scenery was very pleasant. Jixia sat in front of the stone table and chatted casually with Wu Dong, chuckling from time to time. Now that the matter was settled, there was no more pressure. The two of them were in a good mood. To be able to cultivate with Lin Feng was a great opportunity that couldn't be hoped for. Only Qin Qianqian sat in front of the stone table, pursing her lips and frowning. "Relax, junior sister. With Lin Feng's strength, Lu Jun won't be able to escape from him," Jixia said with a smile. Qin Qianqian answered softly, but she still felt uneasy. Jixia smiled and didn't try to persuade her again. He knew his junior sister's personality. After all, Lu Jun was the #1 person in the Qin Chamber of Commerce and was very powerful. Qianqian had never seen Lin Feng in action. No wonder she was worried. But in fact, with Lin Feng's strength, not to mention Lu Jun, even the entire Golden Sword clan was nothing. Jixia's eyes flickered. Thinking of Lin Feng's invincible strength in the Yin residence, he felt his heart tremble. He had witnessed Lin Feng's terrifying strength with his own eyes. While he was thinking, Jixia's ears suddenly pricked up. There was a slight sound of something breaking through the air. Jixia turned around and stood up. That familiar black figure flashed by and appeared in front of them. It was still as calm as before, like the rippling waters of a lake. However, no one knew how powerful his body was. "Linda Gu!" Qin Qianqian shouted happily. Seeing Lin Feng return safely, she immediately flew over like a bird returning to its nest. With a smile, Lin Feng hugged Qin Qianqian. Feeling the love and longing of the beauty in his arms, he felt even more pity. "It's okay, I've brought them." Lin Feng rubbed Qin Qianqian's head and smiled. As he spoke, a fiery red figure appeared behind him. It seemed to be on fire, and the red scales reflected the perfect figure. It was Hong Ling carrying one person in each hand. He threw them on the ground like an eagle catching chickens. Bang! Pong! Lu Jun, who was covered in blood, was completely naked. His face was deathly pale, and Lu Yulian, who was also completely naked, was completely flushed. She lowered her head, not daring to look at anyone. Qin Xianxian covered her mouth in disbelief. Her expression changed rapidly, while Jixia and Wu Dong remained calm. They had already guessed that this would happen. Lindigo, the Qin Xianxian's pretty face paled slightly. This adulterous couple has done a lot of shameful things in secret. They colluded with Yin Song to kidnap you and even put your parents under house arrest to threaten you. Lin Feng said solemnly. His gaze was extremely cold as he looked at Lu Jun and Lu Yulian. He slowly said, just now they all confessed. It was much easier than they had imagined. In order to protect themselves, the two of them were practically fighting to push the responsibility to each other. They were greedy for life and afraid of death. They were originally a combination of benefits and carnal desires. Now that a disaster was about to befall them, they naturally flew separately. Qin Xianxian burst into tears. She had thought that she was the only one suffering. She did not expect that even her parents would be implicated. It's okay. Uncle and Auntie are very safe, Lin Feng said softly. He looked at Lu Jun and Lu Yulian. After we deal with this adulterous couple, we'll go and save them. Kill them. Ji Xia's eyes glinted coldly. Killing them is letting them off too easily. Wu Dong's eyes flashed. Hang them up and parade them through the streets. Lu Jun and Lu Yulian's faces instantly turned pale, and their bodies trembled violently. You dare? Lu Jun's face was ferocious. My father won't let you off. Lu Yulian screamed hysterically. She was the daughter of the master of the Gold Sword sect and had been spoiled since young. Even after marrying Qinrun, she still had great power. When had she ever been treated like this? Lin Feng frowned and said coldly, nonsense. Peng. Without needing to be ordered, Hong Ling had already acted. He grabbed the head with each hand and slammed it hard on the ground. Blood splattered everywhere, and the noise disappeared instantly. That decisiveness and coldness made Ji Xia and Wu Dong's hearts tremble. The head of the Qin Chamber of Commerce, Lu Jun, a level 9-star sector level, was like a child in front of this red-scaled woman. He did not even have the strength to resist. Why don't we forget it, Lindigo? Qin Xianxian could not help but ask. You're still the same, soft-hearted. Lin Feng smiled and scolded her. He gently hugged her little head and put it on his chest. Don't worry. Leave this matter to me. You just wait to get married and be a beautiful bride. Qin Xianxian replied softly. A blissful smile appeared on her face. She had always obeyed Lin Feng's words. What do you plan to do, Lin Feng? Ji Xia asked. A faint light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. There was a deep coldness in his eyes as he spoke slowly. Give him a taste of his own medicine. In the main hall, Qinrun and Madame Luo drank their tea in a daze. The two of them looked at Lin Feng in a daze, then looked at Qin Xianxian and Ji Xia. It was very sudden. They fainted for no reason and saw the three of them when they woke up. They still did not know what happened, especially as son-in-law suddenly appeared. Madame Luo kept sizing up Lin Feng. Seeing Lin Feng's plain black clothes, there was a hint of worry in her eyes. However, she did not say anything and just looked at Qinrun. She was a traditional woman who valued her husband. She would let Qinrun make the decision no matter what. Lin Feng, right? Qinrun drank another cup of tea and felt his head clear up. He nodded thoughtfully. You're the same as Ji Xia, from Yelling Prefecture? Yes, uncle. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. After getting an affirmative answer, Qinrun frowned again. As the leader of the Chamber of Commerce, the entire Yinling Prefecture was within the scope of the Qin Chamber of Commerce. Although he knew that his daughter seemed to have a friend in Yinling Prefecture, he did not care too much. After Qianqian returned to his side, she had been cultivating for the past few years and had forgotten about it. He did not expect that he would suddenly appear. What about your parents? Qinrun asked hesitantly. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of light. He shook his head and said, I don't know if they're alive or dead. alive or dead. What kind of answer was that? Qinren looked at the third Madame Luo and could not help but scratch his head. He did not ask about Lin Feng's family background. He was from Yinling Prefecture and came from the Bourishland. Naturally, he did not have any background. The two of them looked at each other and hesitated. It was obvious that their daughter and this Lin Feng had a great relationship. As parents, they could not bear to separate them, but Qian was the daughter of a prestigious family in the Chamber of Commerce. How could she marry a poor boy with no power and influence? Qian, do you really like him? Madame Luo asked softly. Yes, mother. Qian smiled beautifully. She held Lin Feng's arm and looked very sweet. You won't regret it? Qinren's expression was uglier than his smile. Shaking her head like a rattle, Qian said seriously, Father, I will not marry anyone else but Lin de Go. Lin Feng smiled and held Qian's small hand tightly. He said softly, Uncle, Auntie, don't worry. I will not let Qian suffer. I will take good care of her. Their eyes met. They were in love and made others envious. A smile also appeared on Ji Xia's face. A grown girl cannot be kept at home. Qinren shook his head helplessly. Although he was very unwilling, thinking about the Chamber of Commerce's current situation, Qinren also made a decision. Rather than letting his daughter marry into the Yin residence and be humiliated by that notorious pervert, it was better for her to marry someone she truly liked. Even if she lived a simple life, it would be a happy thing. Thinking of this, Qinren could not help but look at Madame Luo. How could he not want to live that kind of life? It was just that he had no choice. But his daughter still had a path to choose. All right, Qinren sighed softly and looked at Lin Feng. Then I will leave my daughter to you. If you dare to bully Qian, I will not forgive you. Finishing his words, everyone instantly laughed happily, especially Qian. Her smile was like a blooming flower. What could compare to the heartfelt blessings of parents? Amidst the laughter, Ji Xia joked, Clan leader, you can't beat Lin Feng. Qinren patted his chest. Even if I can't beat him, there are still brothers in the Chamber of Commerce. If anyone dares to bully my daughter, I, Qinren, will fight with him even if I have to risk my life. A good father. Lin Feng looked at Qinren and evaluated in his heart. No matter what happened, he would always put his daughter first. This kind of family love could not be bought with money. All right, when are you planning to hold the wedding? Qinren asked. 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? I think 2 years later, we should have more time to prepare. No, Uncle, we're planning to hold the wedding in 3 days. Lin Feng smiled and interrupted. Pata, Madame Luo couldn't even hold the teacup in her hand properly. Qinren was even more stunned. Are you kidding? 3 days? Qinren frowned. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Suddenly, a light flashed in his hand, and the entire hall was dazzling. Large amounts of star crystals were placed on the ground densely, making the entire hall shine. However, Qinren and Madame Luo were stunned. They were really stunned. Even though Qinren was the clan leader of the Chamber of Commerce, he had never seen so many star crystals. I'm sorry, Uncle. I came suddenly and did not prepare many betrothal gifts. Lin Feng smiled and said, These 800,000 star crystals are just a small token of my appreciation. I hope you don't mind. Money was a lot. To Lin Feng, money was just a number. Not to mention that he could make a few 100,000 star crystals by casually making a soaring phoenix. Just the innate treasures obtained from killing the 3 saints of the ancient tribe made him a lot of money. Especially the advanced law enforcer Lei Xiong's purple effulgence weapon. Although it was damaged, its commemorative value and research value were considerable. Before he came to the Yellow Crane continent, he sold this useless item to the Union of Artificers at a friendly price and earned a total of 30 million star crystals. 800,000 was simply negligible. However, Qinren, was completely stunned. In terms of wealth, the Qin Chamber of Commerce was not even comparable to the earliest Lin clan. Not to mention 800,000 star crystals, even 80,000 star crystals was a sky-high price. Looking at the ordinary Lin Feng, Qin Ren and Madame Luo felt their bodies go soft. Poor kid? Who was the poor kid? Chapter 1163. I know what uncle and auntie are worried about. Lin Feng nodded with a smile and looked at the two. Don't worry. 3 days is more than enough to prepare for the wedding. As he spoke, Lin Feng turned around and looked outside the main hall. Wu Dong was already rushing over, and behind him was a large group of cultivators. The few in the lead were already quite old, and all of them were dressed in similar clothes, with a jade token in front of their chests that indicated their identity. Qinren was completely dumbfounded. His first reaction was the large amount of star crystals, and his second reaction was to see the travel-worn old man in the lead, friendly face to face. Master Zhou. Qinren's eyes widened. His 3 steps turned into 2. He didn't care about his manners or star crystals as he hurried over to greet him. The shock on his face instantly turned into a smile, and Qinren was extremely respectful. He smiled and said, Master Zhou, what brings you here? The newcomer was Crane County's #1 weapon refiner, Zhou Fan, the patriarch of the Zhou clan. As the honorary elder of the Union of Artificers, he was one of the top 10 weapon refiners in the entire Yellow Crane County. He was very arrogant, and it was difficult to meet him. Patriarch Qin. Zhou Fan nodded and smiled. That kind smile made Qinren a little stunned. This was the first time he had met Master Zhou face to face. He had always heard that Master Zhou was arrogant and didn't give in to anyone. Even the Yin residence was no exception, let alone smiling at others. Could it be that the rumors were false? Just as Qinren had this thought, Zhou Fan had already turned to Lin Feng, and his dim eyes lit up. He cupped his hands and said, Zhou Fan greets Vice President. Bang! Qinren was stunned. In fact, not only Qinren, but also Madame Luo, Ji Xia, and even Qin Xianxian were stunned. Vice President? What kind of Vice President was Lin Feng? Master Zhou, you don't have to be so polite, Lin Feng said with a smile. I took the liberty to invite you over this time. Sorry for disturbing you. At this moment, Wu Dong had already approached and returned the token. Lin Feng smiled and kept the token that represented the Vice President. You're too polite. Zhou Fan smiled. I didn't know that Vice President would be coming. I almost missed it. I'll have to trouble Master Zhou to help me this time. Lin Feng smiled. Even a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake. Perhaps in terms of strength, he did not fear anyone in Crane County, but if he wanted to hold a decent wedding, he needed an organizer. Wu Dong and Ji Xia could only act as assistants. They still needed an expert who was highly respected, had excellent connections, and could respond to a single call. And the Union of Artificers was the best answer. Branches of the Union of Artificers could be found in every region and every continent. The position of the Union of Artificers was universal everywhere. The Vice President of the Vermilion Bird Continent and the Vice President of the Yellow Crane Continent had the same status. Haha, it's a piece of cake. Don't worry, Vice President. Leave it to me. Zhou Fan patted his chest and smiled. Suddenly, his eyes lit up with reverence. The Artificer competition of the Vermilion Bird Continent is quite exciting, especially the competition between Vice President and President Nangong. It's a good story. I hope Vice President can give me some advice when you have the chance. Lin Feng was quite surprised. He did not expect that the competition between him and President Nangong would be known by artificers in the Yellow Crane Continent. Vice President, you don't know, but your reputation in the artificer world is not inferior to President Nangong's at all, Zhou Fan said with a smile. Is that so? Lin Feng smiled. He understood after thinking about it. After all, the artificer world was only so big. It was normal for it to be passed around. There was no distinction between regions. The two of them chatted like old friends, causing everyone to be stunned. Although Ji Xia and Qin Xianxian were surprised by Lin Feng's identity as the Vice President of the Union of Artificers, it was not as shocking as Qinren. He originally thought that Lin Feng was just a poor kid from the wilderness. He had no power or influence, and his strength was weak. But who would have thought? In front of Lin Feng, he was the real poor. As for the so-called power, even the Yin residents feared the union of artificers. The vice president's position was even higher than a normal saint. Even the patriarch of the Yin residents, Yin Ziyuan, had to be polite when he saw the vice president of the union of artificers. In a split second, the plainly dressed Lin Feng became a dazzling golden light in Qin Ren's eyes. Too many secrets. Rich, powerful, and influential, Qin Ren was stunned. His heart was beating rapidly and his mouth was dry. "Come here, Qian." Qin Ren waved his hand. His expression changed slightly. Qin Qian was slightly surprised. She walked over obediently. "What's wrong, father?" Qin Ren lowered his voice and said softly, "Qian, you said that you haven't seen Lin Feng for a few years. Then, how much do you know about him?" As if his question was not obvious enough, Qin Ren grinned and said, "What I mean is there anything I don't know? Tell me everything. I'm afraid my heart can't take it if you keep scaring me like this." Qin Qian heard and laughed. She said softly, "Father, actually I don't know much. For example, I don't know that Lindige is the vice president of the Union of Artificers." After a pause, Qin Qian pressed her lips with her small hands. She raised her head slightly and muttered, "I only know that Lindige just returned from the Vermilion Bird Continent." "Oh, right." Qin Qian's eyes brightened. She bit her lips and said, "A few hours ago, Lu Jun and Lu Yulian kidnapped me to the Yin residence. It was Lindige who saved me." "What?" Qin Ren's expression changed greatly. His hands trembled. "I heard from Senior Marshal Brother Ji that Lindige barged into the Yin residence alone. He killed everyone in his way. No one was a match for him." Qin Qian's eyes brightened. A happy smile appeared on her face. "He killed thousands of people in a row. The Yin residence's martial artists were so scared that they didn't dare to move. After that, 3 more saints came." 3 saints? Qin Ren's eyes almost popped out. In the end, the 2 saints were killed by Big Brother Lin with a single move. The last one was the patriarch of the Yin clan, Yin Ziyuan. He fled like a dog that had fallen into the water. Qin Qian couldn't help but imagine the scene in his mind as he spoke softly, and he felt sweet in his heart. Who didn't want their sweetheart to be an invincible hero? Plop! Qin Ren fell onto the chair in shock. His whole body was weak. Madame Luo, who was beside him, had turned into a stone statue. She was completely dumbfounded. Who exactly was this Lin Feng? It was shocking. After knowing Lin Feng's true strength and identity, Qin Ren only felt his old face turn red. He felt guilty for some reason. "Thank you." After knowing everything, Qin Ren felt as if it was a lifetime ago. He naturally knew that Lu Yulian and Lu Jun were in cahoots. He and Lu Yulian were husband and wife in name only. Everyone was well aware of the union of interests and didn't interfere with each other. But he didn't expect Lu Yulian to be so ruthless this time. "You're welcome, uncle. It's my responsibility to protect Qian." Lin Feng smiled. "Sigh, I almost caused Qian to suffer." Qin Ren sighed deeply. It was hard to imagine what would have happened if Lin Feng didn't arrive in time. The scene was too horrible to look at. If Qian was humiliated by that pervert, or even swallowed it because of him and was forced to marry into the Yin residence, then what face would he have left as a father? "It's not your fault, uncle." Lin Feng comforted. A ray of light flashed in his eyes. "It was done by those scumbags." Qin Ren clenched his fist. His eyes were spitting fire. He suddenly frowned. "All right, where are Lu Jun and Lu Yulian? Did you kill them?" Shaking his head indifferently, Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint arc. "Wouldn't it be too easy for them if I killed them?" A ray of light flashed in his eyes, containing deep hatred. Qian had almost been killed by those 2 scumbags. How could he take this lying down? "I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. Since they dared to do it, they should pay the price. I want them to lose face and die. I want them to pay me back 100 times, 1,000 times." Lin Feng's voice was calm, but the murderous intent was dense. "If they moved forward 1 foot, I would move forward 10 feet. They dare to do such an outrageous thing to Qianqian. Even if they died 1,000 or 10,000 times, it wouldn't be enough to eliminate the hatred in his heart. In the center of Crane County, in the largest open-air square, two white bodies were intertwined. It was a scene of erotic spring, which was shocking. Look, isn't that the jade-faced young master, Lu Jun? It's really him, the boss of the Qin's Chamber of Commerce. Damn, what's going on? It's so embarrassing. Who did he offend? He deserves it. But who is that woman? She's quite plump. Haha, but she's too old. Lu Jun can really bite her. A live erotic scene was playing out in the open-air square. Especially the reputation of the jade-faced young master, Lu Jun, attracted even more people to come and watch. The crowd surged. From 100 people to 1,000 people, from 10,000 to 100,000 to 1,000,000. The people's curiosity was endless. As the number of people increased, no matter how low-key Lu Yulian usually was, she was still recognized. Isn't that the first madam of the Qin's Chamber of Commerce? Lu Yulian? Yes, it's her. The daughter of the Gold Sword sect leader. I saw her at the wedding of the Qin's Chamber of Commerce's patriarch, Qinren. It's her, but she's a little older. A little older? She's obviously a lot older. Look at sagging, haha. The crowd was extremely happy as they watched and discussed animatedly. Such a rare event was rarely seen in 1,000 years. It was too interesting. Qin's Chamber of Commerce. Good. Well done, Qinren said 3 times in a row. He clenched his fist, and his eyes shone brightly. It was quite satisfying. This bitch, I've disliked her for a long time. If it weren't for the Gold Sword sect support, I would have slapped her a few times and kicked her out. Qinren gritted his teeth and shouted. The grudge between him and Lu Yulian was not just a day or two. The conflict was extremely deep. Wait, Qinren suddenly frowned. But if we do this, I'm afraid the Gold Sword sect will take revenge. Biting his lips lightly, Qinren knew that Lin Feng did not care. But the Qin's Chamber of Commerce was different. If the Gold Sword sect took the opportunity to take revenge, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, Lu Yulian was the daughter of the Gold Sword sect leader, and Lu Jun also held a high position. Uncle, don't worry. Lin Feng smiled indifferently and turned his head slightly. At this moment, a fiery red figure walked in with a cold face. Master, the mission is complete. Hong Ling cupped his hands with an expressionless face. Mission completed? Qinren raised his eyebrows and was quite curious. Uncle, let me introduce you. This is my partner who has gone through life and death with me. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Now, all the warriors of the Gold Sword sect are either dead or have run away. The sect's encampment has been burned down. From now on, the Gold Sword sect will no longer exist in the Crane County. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Of course, he would not leave any hidden dangers. The Gold Sword sect should be destroyed. Chapter 1164. This is the mission she mentioned? Qinren looked at Hong Ling in shock. Yes. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Dad, Sister Hong Ling is a saint. She's very powerful. Qin Qianqian interrupted with envy in her eyes. She also wanted to have such power to help Lin Feng. Another saint. Qinren smiled bitterly. He was almost numb like Ji Xia. The shock he had experienced in this short period of time was more than what he had experienced in his entire life. First, it was 800,000 star crystals. Then, it was the vice president of the Weapon Craftsman Alliance. Now, it was one saint after another. The most ridiculous thing was that this Hong Ling had actually called Lin Feng his master. She was a saint. Qinren shook his head speechlessly. He felt that his brain was not big enough. He found it hard to believe before. The Golden Sword sect had quite a number of level 9 and even peak cosmic sector level beings. There were even tens of thousands of powerful beings. But in front of Saint, were these so-called powerful beings still powerful? There was a saying in the Do Ling world. Those below the saint level were ants. Don't worry, uncle. There won't be any repercussions. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Since the Golden Sword sect is finished, The Yin residence is ready to make a move. Yin Ziyuan is not willing to accept this, so I won't show mercy. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He was calm, but there was a faint killing intent in his eyes. Different from the Golden Sword sect, although Yin Song wanted to be killed, he was passive in the entire matter. He wasn't the real mastermind. On the contrary, Lu Jun and Lu Yulian took the initiative to plot against Qianqian. Therefore, although he killed Yin Song that day, he still gave the Yin residents a chance. After the wedding 3 days later, Qianqian and I will leave here. Before that, I will deal with all the repercussions. Lin Feng nodded and thought. As for the Merchant Association, I will invest a sum of money to develop it and let the Union of Artificers take care of it. But treating the symptoms but not the root cause is not a long-term solution. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at Qinren. In the end, the rules of the Yellow Crane Continent were very different from those of the Vermilion Bird Continent. Doing business here required backing. Simply put, one needed martial power. The existence of a Chamber of Commerce was not as independent as the Vermilion Bird Continent, but depended on a powerful force to survive. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem if he was here. However, as he left, there would definitely be changes as time passed. Sigh, how can I not know? Qinren let out a long sigh. But how can I not lower my head when I am under someone else's roof? As the patriarch, he had to depend on others for his livelihood. Qinren knew his own suffering. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng looked at Qianqian, who was beside him. That pair of big watery eyes were pleading. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Qinren. Actually, uncle, you can give up your position and live in seclusion with Annie. Wouldn't that be great? Qinren frowned and hesitated. He can't let go of his family. Madame Luo smiled gently. Thank you, Lin Feng. We understand your intentions. Father. Qianqian bit his lips. How about this, uncle? Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he nodded. If you're not afraid of trouble, why don't you move to the Vermilion Bird Continent with your entire family? The Chamber of Commerce is free and independent there. You don't need to depend on others. Plus, with me watching over you, no one will dare to do anything to you. Qinren was slightly surprised. Instantly, his eyes lit up and he frowned slightly. It's difficult. Although the Qin clan does not have many elite warriors, we have a large population. We can't just leave those old, weak women and children here, right? There are hundreds of thousands of people. Just the transportation fee alone is inestimable. Lin Feng smiled. Problems that can be solved with money are not problems. This is just a small amount of money. Plus, we could just build a transportation channel. Small amount of money? Qinren smiled bitterly. Thinking about it, hundreds of thousands of star crystals was just a small amount of money to Lin Feng. But the Qin Chamber of Commerce still has a lot of fixed assets in the Crane County, including shops, land. Qinren murmured thoughtfully. Even if we really want to leave, it won't be done in just 3 days. Why not? Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Qinren was startled. He looked at Lin Feng in confusion. It's simple. I want them all. Uncle, name a price. Lin Feng smiled. Qinren smiled bitterly and shook his head. He had been a businessman for a long time and calculated everything carefully. He seemed to have forgotten that Lin Feng was a rich man. To him, money seemed to be just a number. Looking at Lin Feng and his daughter's pleading eyes, Qinren spread his hands. It seems that I have to agree even if I don't want to. Yeah, that's great. Qianqian jumped up happily and hugged Lin Feng. She was very excited. Caressing her little head and feeling Qianqian's happiness, Lin Feng smiled. All this time, he owed Qianqian too much. She had always been thinking for him, but he had never done much for her. Now that he could do something for her to make her happy and at ease, he was willing to pay any price. Moreover, it was just a small matter. 3 days later, be a happy bride. Lin Feng said gently. Crane County, Central Square. The battle between Lu Jun and Lu Yulian was still going on. People came and went, and the place remained saturated. Some people left after getting used to the novelty of the battle, while others came to watch the spectacle after learning about it. However, There were even more people who were curious about how long this unprecedented battle would last. A full day and night. Lin Feng did not have the slightest bit of mercy for the two culprits. The amount of powder he used was very heavy, far exceeding the normal load. After a full day and night of reclamation, Lu Jun was almost dried up. His face was extremely pale, and he exhausted all his strength. In the end, he died in front of everyone. He died as cowardly as he could be. Not only did he become a laughingstock, but his notoriety spread far and wide, leaving behind the most humiliating mark. Lu Yulian was more unfortunate than Lu Jun. At least Lu Jun was happy until his death. However, Lu Yulian did not die. Instead, she slowly woke up after Lu Jun's death. However, when she saw herself doing such a disgusting and ugly thing in front of millions of people, she was furious. Her body, which had already reached its limit, was instantly torn to pieces. She died of shame. Lu Yulian had also become a big joke. In the county city, it did not cause too much of stir. Even the Golden Sword sect being razed to the ground overnight was not important, because anyone who was observant could tell that it was because Lu Jun and Lu Yulian had provoked someone they should not have provoked, and even the Golden Sword sect was implicated. This was just an ordinary vengeance and revenge. What was truly shocking was the Yin Mansion. The collapse of this enormous power was swept away by a mysterious expert, Lin Feng, alone, like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. After killing 2 saints in a row, Yin Ziyuan fled like a drowning dog with its tail between its legs. The strong were respected. In Huang Hezhou, this concept was deeply ingrained. Only the truly strong were respected and worshipped. Lin Feng had already become the new idol of Crane County. The wedding was hastily arranged. In Crane County, Zhou Fan might not be the strongest, but his connections and ability to get things done were top-notch. Under his planning, everything was quickly prepared. According to Lin Feng's wishes, they held a huge wedding that would cause a sensation in the county and give Qianqian the best memories. As for the two people involved, they were very free. Lin Feng brought Qianqian around the county city leisurely. They laughed and chatted happily, making up for what he owed Qianqian in the past few years. Jixia and Wu Dong were waiting happily. They were waiting for the wedding to come, and also waiting for their new journey after it was over. As the clan leader of the Chamber of Commerce, Qinrun was very busy. Not only did he have to deal with the aftermath of the Chamber of Commerce, but he also had to calculate the population of the entire clan and arrange for personnel to be transferred. If he really had to leave Crane County, which had been rooted for thousands of years, just the trivial matters alone would be enough to give Qinrun a headache. After all, he was not as carefree as Lin Feng. Everyone had their own things to do and busy with. 3 days passed in such a hurry. Soon, everything was exhausted. Nanlu Continent, the largest continent in the southern region, was under the jurisdiction of King Lu. King Lu looked around and frowned slightly. Strange, why didn't 10th junior brother come? Maybe he was delayed by something. King Han smiled faintly. The 10th junior brother they were talking about was the ruler of Yellow Crane Continent, King Brown. The southern region was under the jurisdiction of Emperor Yao. His disciples were the kings of the 9 continents, including King Yin, King Qin, King Zhu, and so on. They were all neutral because their eldest senior brother, Shun, was directly under Emperor Yao and did not participate in any power struggles. In fact, under Emperor Yao's rule, no disciple dared to form a faction. On the other hand, King Lu, King Han, and King Brown were very close. After Emperor Yao's disappearance, the 3 of them formed a group and followed King Lu's lead. King Lu, King Brown came out of seclusion and went to Crane County with his sworn brother, Lai Feng. One of the Yellow Crane Continent's saints cupped his hands and said, he was King Brown's trusted aide, Zhuang Zhong. King Lu, King Han, and King Brown were not the only ones gathered here. There were more than 10 saints who were loyal to King Lu. Oh, King Lu was curious. What happened in Crane County that made King Brown so nervous? I'm not too sure, Zhuang Zhong pondered and said, but according to the reports, something happened in the Yin residence. King Brown's late 3rd brother's grandson, Yuan was hunted down. Not only was his only son killed, the entire residence was wiped out. The entire residence has scattered like birds and beasts. I see. King Lu nodded slowly. King Brown is quite loyal, King Han said with a smile. It's more like a child's temper. King Lu smiled. Why do you have to care about such trivial matters? They did not think much of it. In King Lu and King Han's eyes, it was like two children who lost a fight and went home to look for their parents. They did not expect that the king of the 9 continents, King Brown, would want to interfere in such matters. It was quite funny. By the way, do you know which faction is causing trouble? King Han suddenly asked curiously. Knowing that the Yin residents had a powerful backer, they still dared to cause trouble. In King Han's eyes, this faction was not ordinary. I'm not too sure, but it said that there's only one person, Zhuang Zhong said. One person? The saints discussed fervently. This time, even King Lu was curious. Do you know his name and origin? I don't know his origin. It's as though he appeared out of thin air. Zhuang Zhong pondered for a moment and nodded. But I do know his name. He's called Lin Feng. Chapter 1165. Brown King's absence did not cause too much of a change. At the end of the day, the one in charge of the Lu King's lineage was still the Lu King. Although he was one of the 3 heavyweights, everyone only followed his lead. King Lu was the second disciple of Emperor Yao. Regardless of strength or connections, he was one of the best in the 9 provinces. He was not called second senior brother for nothing. What's the current situation of the competition? King Lu's expression was serious. King Lu, there have been many changes in the fighters on the challenge stage. There hasn't been a second challenger. A young saint cupped his hands and said, These challengers aren't much. King Han shook his head. Actually, everyone knows how many experts there are in the southern region. Although those saints who have lived in seclusion are slightly stronger than normal saints, there is still a gap between them and the strongest saints in the southern region. King Lu nodded. So, King Yin is still the only one who has qualified? The king of Han hummed softly. The only ones who can truly pose a threat to second senior brother are the king of Yin and the king of Ju. Oh, and perhaps the great bandit Cuckoo, who appeared out of nowhere 100 years ago. I wonder if he's still alive, and if he'll participate in the competition. King Lu's eyes flashed. There's no hurry. Most of the experts are still observing, including King Ju. I'm afraid we'll only see the real results in the last month of the year. That's right, second senior brother. Have you heard of a rather sensational matter recently? King Han suddenly asked. What is it? King Lu was surprised. Something happened in the Vermilion Bird continent under the jurisdiction of our archenemy, King Yin. King Han's eyes flashed. Oh, tell me about it. King Lu's interest was piqued when he heard the name King Yin. After Emperor Shun abdicated his throne, the only people in the entire southern region that he feared were King Yin and King Ju. King Ju had always been neutral, but King Yin was on Shun's side. They were completely different. I heard that a saint who suddenly appeared seemed to have offended the ancient race. They sent a high-level and 2 mid-level law enforcers, King Han said slowly. High-level law enforcer? King Lu's expression changed slightly as he smiled faintly. Then he won't even know how he died. Even I don't have the confidence to win against a high-level law enforcer of the ancient race. King Han said solemnly, No, the ones who died were the 3 law enforcers of the ancient race. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone gasped. King Lu's expression changed instantly, and his eyes flashed. An advanced law enforcer and 2 intermediate law enforcers? Is the news true? King Han nodded and said, I just found out as well. It should be close to the truth. There are many witnesses to this. King Lu grunted and frowned. He muttered, to be able to kill a high-level law enforcer and 2 mid-level law enforcers. Even if he was lucky, his strength would be at least at the peak of the saint level. It's impossible for such an expert to appear out of nowhere. I can't believe it either. King Han shook his head with a bitter smile. But I heard that he's a young man who's not even 30 yet. What? King Lu was stunned, and the crowd was in an uproar. What's his name? King Lu frowned. Does he know his sect, his family, and his background? Shaking his head, King Hans said, I'm not sure. After all, this is the Vermilion Bird Continent under King Yan's jurisdiction. It's not easy to get information. Instantly, there were sounds of disappointment from the crowd. However, everyone's curiosity was piqued, and King Lu's expression was solemn. To him, this was not good news. Suddenly, King Lu, I know his background. In the crowd, a short man stood up, his eyes flashing. Oh! Everyone's gazes were focused on him. King Lu and King Han's eyes shone brightly. Because I've always been interested in weapon refiners, the short man said casually. This person is from the Lin clan, a weapon refiner family in the Vermilion Bird Continent. His true identity is a mystery, but he just won the Vermilion Bird Continent's weapon refiner competition. A look of admiration flashed across the short man's eyes as he nodded. I didn't expect him to be not only a top-level weapon refiner, but also a top-level martial artist. A top-level weapon refiner. A peak saint. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. It was common to see a single one, but to have both, there was no one in the entire Douling world who could do it. Moreover, according to King Han's words, he was a young man who was not even 30 years old yet. Among the saints, he was the youngest. A heaven-sent genius. King Lu's breathing was slightly hurried. What's his name? I think he's called. The short martial artist frowned slightly. He looked up as if he was thinking back. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He's called Lin. That's right, Lin Feng. The short martial artist clapped his hands and finally remembered. He said happily, he's called Lin Feng. That's right. Lin Feng. Everyone nodded slowly as they discussed. King Lu muttered in his heart, but his expression suddenly turned suspicious. He felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Wait, where have I heard this name before? Looking around at everyone, King Lu's eyes widened as he looked at Zhuang Zhong. What did you say just now? Who did the Brown King go to settle the score with? Everyone looked at him. Zhuang Zhong stood up in shock. It's Lin Feng. Whoosh! There was an uproar. King Lu's expression was extremely ugly. Crane County. Under the preparations of the weapon refiner Zhou Fan, a large number of people were mobilized. In just 3 days, there was a complete change. A wedding that caused a sensation in the city was held under the gaze of all the martial artists in Crane County. The scale was as big as it could be. For this wedding, Lin Feng invested hundreds of thousands of star crystals. It could be said that this was unprecedented in the history of the Douling world. It was extremely luxurious and extraordinary. He booked all the shops and restaurants and held a banquet. He invited all the martial artists in Crane County. To be precise, he invited every martial artist who came to attend the wedding. Even though it had only been 3 days, Lin Feng's name had already spread throughout the Yellow Crane continent like a thunderclap. If it was gold, it would shine no matter where it was. With Lin Feng's strength, no matter which county he was in, he would be at the top of the pyramid. He was the most eye-catching existence. Look, isn't that Master Yilong? Even Peacock Fairy is here. Wow, so beautiful. How can it be? Look, even the president, Master Cohen, and the vice president, Master Yu, have come with congratulatory gifts. Everyone was in an uproar. They turned out to be the few respected refiners of the Refiners' Union of the Yellow Crane continent. They were all here. Normally, they were elusive and arrogant. But now, they had come with smiles on their faces. They even brought quite a lot of congratulatory gifts. Exclamations kept coming. In everyone's eyes, Lin Feng was even more mysterious. Wow, Saint Zhao Luo. And Silver Moon, Saint Xiao Jian. Oh my God, there's someone here too. What a powerful aura. The appearance of a saint brought about a true climax. In the eyes of these ordinary martial artists, a saint was an unattainable existence. It was extremely difficult to even see one. But now, they came one after another as if they were in a market. It was extremely shocking. Lin Feng brought Qin Xianxian and welcomed each and every one of them with a smile. Perhaps he didn't know any of these guests, but it didn't matter. Just like during his wedding with Yuma, It was enough that the person beside him was happy and happy. To Qianqian, he owed her too much. He had made her wait for too long. Are you tired, Lindigo? Qianqian asked softly. Her beautiful eyes flickered. How can I be? Lin Feng smiled and shook her soft hands. I can't wait to be happy. Thank you, Lindigo. Qianqian smiled and leaned her head forward in satisfaction. With tears in her eyes, she said, Qianqian is really happy today. Being able to marry you is the most satisfying and fortunate thing in Qianqian's life. Silly girl. Lin Feng rubbed her hair and smiled. Being able to marry you is even more fortunate. Their eyes met. They didn't say anything. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He turned his head halfway and felt an aura approaching. It was a man with a cold expression. He carried a sword sheath on his back. His eyes were looking at him without any change in expression. Obviously, the aura just now was purposely released by him. Hello, Moonsword Sex Xiao Jian. The man was the Silver Moon Saint that everyone was talking about. Xiao Jian. Nice to meet you. Lin Feng smiled and shook his hand. Congratulations on marrying a beauty. Happy marriage. Xiao Jian's voice was calm and didn't sound congratulatory at all. He looked at Lin Feng with bright eyes. But let me remind you, if you want to live, take your wife and run as far away as you can. Otherwise, after an incense sticks time, the wedding will become a funeral. Qianqian's face turned pale. Lin Feng gently clenched Xiao Jian's trembling hand and looked at him. This young swordsman didn't have any hostility. His cold expression was innate. He came to remind him that even if he wasn't a friend, he wasn't an enemy. You are, Xiao Jian said calmly. You destroyed the Yin residence. Today, I'm here to return the favor. So that's why. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Yin Ziyuan? Xiao Jian stared at Lin Feng and nodded. You can't afford to offend the helper he invited. Leave quickly. I can only tell you this much. Thank you for telling me, Brother Xiao. Lin Feng smiled faintly. You don't believe me? Xiao Jian frowned. No. Lin Feng shook his head calmly. There's no need for that. Looking at Qianqian, Lin Feng smiled warmly. Today is Qianqian's big day. It's a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. I promise to give her the grandest and most unforgettable wedding. How can I go back on my words? Lindigo. Qianqian bit her lips, and her face turned pale. Don't worry. It'll be fine. Lin Feng rubbed her head. His calm movements revealed confidence. Xiao Jian stared at Lin Feng for 3 seconds and said, You'll regret it. He didn't try to persuade him anymore and turned to leave. Qianqian was left with a worried face, and Lin Feng was still calm. It was as if nothing had happened. However, there was a flash of light in his eyes. If Yin Ziyuan was really audacious and dared to cause trouble at his wedding, then he would really hang himself. He was tired of living. Chapter 1166. Xiao Jian didn't leave, just like how he didn't spread the news. He just stood there quietly like a lone wolf, looking at Lin Feng from afar. He really wanted to see how strong this young man with a mysterious halo who had appeared out of nowhere was. How could he be so confident and disregard everything? After all, this was the famous Brown King. Not only was he the ruler of the Yellow Crane continent, but he was also one of the kings of the 9 provinces. He was also the most powerful cultivator in the Yellow Crane continent. An advanced saint. Are you sure you're all right, Lindigo? Qianqian asked softly, a hint of worry in her eyes. She wasn't worried about herself, but about Lin Feng. I'm fine, silly girl. Lin Feng smiled. It's different now from when we were in the Yinling estate. I didn't have enough strength to protect you, but now. Lin Feng said softly, his eyes sparkling. No one can bully you anymore. Moreover, have you forgotten my identity? Lin Feng took out the token and waved it. I'm the vice president of the Union of Artificers. Qianqian's eyes lit up, and her worry turned into joy. The Union of Artificers was not an organization that anyone could offend. Having this title was like carrying a protective amulet. You're not worried anymore, are you? Lin Feng smiled. Yes. Qianqian nodded embarrassedly and blushed. They looked at each other and smiled, with a sense of happiness. Soon, the small matter was forgotten. Just like Lin Feng said, today was a big day for the two of them. They witnessed each other's love and represented their promise to the future. Was anything else important? The guests came in an endless stream. The wedding venue was bustling with noise and excitement. Qin Ren's face was glowing as he received the distinguished guests. He felt extremely honored. There were many guests that he didn't even dare to think about when he first came. Now, they were all here with smiles on their faces and were very polite. This made him, the father-in-law, feel proud. The people of the Chamber of Commerce were very busy, but everyone was very happy. It was not only because today was the wedding of Miss Qianqian, but also because of the arrival of Lin Feng. Initially, there were many martial artists from the Gold Sword sect in the Chamber of Commerce. Relying on the power of the Gold Sword sect, they could be said to be tyrannical in the Chamber of Commerce. Although they were few in number, they had completely suppressed the main force of the Chamber of Commerce, the Qin clan. And it was not only the Qin Chamber of Commerce. All the chambers of commerce in the Yellow Crane State were the same. But now, Lin Feng's arrival directly uprooted the Golden Sword sect. The prestige of this mysterious son-in-law had already become a legend in the Qin Chamber of Commerce. Before the wedding, everyone in the Qin Chamber of Commerce had already received the news that they were about to move out of the Yellow Crane State. For mediocre people like them, it didn't matter where they went as long as they truly had freedom and weren't bullied. On top of that, everyone was given a considerable amount of relocation money, at least a few 100,000 or a few million Doling coins, and at most a few 100,000 Doling coins, and at most a few 100,000 Doling crystals. Everyone had made a lot of money, and they were all smiling happily, almost worshipping Lin Feng as a god. Now, all of them were sincerely helping Lin Feng. They were happy that Qianqian had married a good husband. "I'm sorry, Linda Gu. I made you spend a lot of money for me," Qianqian said softly. "You're happy, they're happy, and I'm happy too." Lin Feng looked around at everyone and said with a faint smile, "Actually, they're very simple. They just want to live a good life, just like you. Besides, a problem that can be solved with money is not a big problem at all." "Rich man." Qianqian twisted her nose and showed a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Linda Gu, how much money do you have? Do you want to know?" Lin Feng said with a smile. Qianqian nodded and blinked her watery eyes. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng said softly, "I gave a few tens of thousands, tipped a few 100,000, spent a few 100,000 on the wedding, and bought teleportation formations and teleportation channels. A few million." Lin Feng reported the expenses one by one, making Qianqian dumbfounded. The few 100,000 and a few million that Lin Feng mentioned were not soul spirit coins, but star crystals. In the Yellow Crane continent, the average wealth of an ordinary star sector level warrior was only a few dozen star crystals. This was also why Wudong was willing to lead the way for a reward of 1 star crystal. 1 star crystal was equivalent to 100 million soul spirit coins. Many Star Lords didn't even have that much wealth. Then, "Linda Gu, how much do you have left now?" Qianqian recovered and asked weakly. "I still have more than 20 million, Lin Feng said casually. Qianqian covered her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Actually, for warriors, money is just a supplement. It doesn't really have much of an effect, including power. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He said softly, "These are just luxurious clothes and jewelry. When you have enough strength, everything will naturally appear and you will have it." Qianqian nodded as if she understood. In the Doling world, the strong are respected. If you don't have enough strength, you will lose it one day, even if you have a lot of wealth. Lin Feng said faintly. He looked into the distance, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Only strength is the true meaning of money for warriors. It can protect everything and change everything. It will never be taken away by others. Lin Feng smiled indifferently as he looked at Qianqian, who was slightly dazed. He lightly held her soft and seemingly boneless hand and said, "Come, let's go welcome these great figures who came uninvited." "Big shots?" Qin Xianqian was confused. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. They felt like 3 shooting stars. 3 well-dressed warriors with extraordinary auras landed on the ground almost instantly. The leader was a man with an imposing appearance. He was wearing a dark red star armor and had a skull necklace around his neck. He had his hands behind his back and was extremely arrogant. He gave people a strong sense of oppression. Half an inch behind him, an old man with a red beard was glaring angrily. His entire body was glowing with fire. He was exuding a strong aura. They were 2 unfamiliar warriors. But the stars behind them didn't lie. They were blurry and their silhouettes could be seen clearly. They were sacred and arrogant. They were saints and not ordinary saints. For their stars to reach such a level, they were at a relatively high level among the saints. High-level saints. Furthermore, they were 2 high-level saints. Everyone was stunned. Their gazes landed on the most inconspicuous of the 3. The sharp-eyed warriors even recognized him. Saint Yin Ziyuan. It's the head of the Yin residence, Patriarch Yin. Voices rose and fell one after another. Everyone's reactions were extremely intense. It wasn't because of Yin Ziyuan's identity as a saint. It was because of the legend of Lin Feng. He wiped out the Yin residence, killed 2 saints, and forced Yin Ziyuan to flee. The 2 were enemies and not friends. Furthermore, looking at Yin Ziyuan's hateful expression, it was obvious that he wasn't just here to congratulate. It was more likely revenge. That's the owner of the sacred tower. It's true. I saw him once during the memorial ceremony 100 years ago. Saint Huiyao Lai Feng. A series of astounded cries could be heard. Saint Huiyao Lai Feng was older than all the warriors in the Crane Cry County. He was a living legend. The existence of a sacred tower was the symbol of the Crane Cry County. It represented strength and status. Many warriors wanted to enter this sacred tower to learn. Gasps could be heard continuously. The eyes of all the martial artists lit up. They were incomparably excited as they finally saw this legendary figure. But who was the warrior standing half an inch in front of Saint Huiyao Lai Feng? Whispers could be heard everywhere. Everyone was curious. Although they didn't know who the man in the dark red armor and skull necklace was, they were certain that the man in the red armor was more powerful than Saint Huiyao Lai Feng. Although his aura wasn't as strong as Lai Feng's, he was able to suppress Lai Feng's aura when he stood half an inch in front of Lai Feng. They were both high-level saints, but he had a higher level of strength. At this moment, whoosh, whoosh, 2 figures appeared from behind. The 2 warriors with the same constellation behind them knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Greetings, Brown King. Greetings, Lord Brown King." Silence filled the place. The entire wedding venue seemed to have been frozen in an instant. However, in an instant, the faces of the more knowledgeable warriors turned pale. They knelt on the ground in shock. Many of them even prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. "Greetings, Brown King. Greetings, Brown King." Voices sounded one after another. Before the wedding, Lin Feng had said that there was no need to bow when meeting a saint, but how could it be the same this time? The person who came was the ruler of the Yellow Crane continent, the king of the 9 provinces. He was the expert who controlled everything in the Yellow Crane continent. He was a god who stood above the clouds. The crowd was densely packed. No one dared to stand up. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. They were afraid that if they angered this terrifying true god, they would die without a burial ground. Yin Ziyuan's face was filled with pride. He raised his head proudly. Lai Feng's expression didn't change at all. He didn't say anything either. Although he and the Brown King were sworn brothers, in terms of strength and status, it wasn't his turn to make the decision. In this kind of situation, there was a difference in priority. "Where is Lin Feng?" The Brown King finally spoke. His voice was cold and had a questioning tone. The 2 half-kneeling saints looked at each other. They didn't know whether they should speak or not. They were afraid that they would offend the Brown King. "Are you deaf?" The Brown King's eyes turned cold. The skull necklace seemed to have come alive. The eyes of the skulls were cold and sharp. The terrifying aura that had been suppressed suddenly exploded. Everyone's heart trembled. It was as if they were in hell. The two saints' faces turned pale. They were about to speak. Suddenly, "Are you looking for me?" A calm and casual voice sounded. Like a spring breeze, the calm aura eased the tense atmosphere. Everyone looked over. They saw Lin Feng in his formal attire. He had a faint smile on his face as he walked over. He was alone, but there wasn't the slightest hint of fear on his face. Chapter 1167. Wheat tip against needle tip. The two pairs of eyes met in a moment of tit for tat. "You are Lin Feng?" Brown King's voice was cold as he sized up Lin Feng. Although his expression did not change, he was secretly shocked. An expert, he was stronger than he had imagined. Whether he was strong or weak, he could already tell. Brown King's eyes were cold and sharp, looking at the empty constellation behind Lin Feng. Then at the astral seal on his forehead, he could not figure out Lin Feng's strength at all. Hence, he felt some fear in his heart. He did not believe it before. Killing Hong Zhan, who was a mid-stage saint, in one move was indeed unbelievable. But now, in his heart, he was already 80% convinced. This kid was very scary. That's right. Lin Feng smiled, but his words were still shocking. "Who are you?" Everyone was shocked. Lai Feng and Yin Ziyuan were stunned, while Brown King's face turned cold. Lin Feng naturally knew who it was. Even if he did not know before, the voices just now were so loud that even a deaf person could hear it. Everyone in the surroundings was worried for Lin Feng. Their hearts were pounding. They didn't know whether to advance or retreat. What should they do? That was Brown King, the king of Yellow Crane Continent. He could kill anyone he wanted. No matter how strong Lin Feng was, no one believed that he could shake Brown King's authority. In their eyes, they were not on the same level. One was an ordinary saint, and the other was the king of 9 provinces. "How dare you?" Inziyuan reacted and suddenly shouted, but he was just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. "Why aren't you kneeling down when you see the Brown King?" Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at Inziyuan. That flame was like a high-pitched bird spreading its wings and crying out. Inziyuan's face immediately turned pale, and his heart trembled. Instantly, he felt as if he was in another dimension. There was no one around, only him and Lin Feng. It was as if they were naked. If Lin Feng wanted to, he could kill him with a raise of his hand. Staggering backwards, Inziyuan's face was deathly pale. His reaction caused the Brown King and Lai Feng's expressions to change as their eyes turned cold. "What is the meaning of this?" Brown King said in a low voice. Originally, he had planned to attack as soon as he came in. He wanted to injure Lin Feng severely or kill him as a warning to others. However, Lin Feng was much stronger than he had imagined. He didn't want to attack before he was fully confident. It was a crucial moment, and it was not worth it to get injured because of this. "Shouldn't I be the one asking you that?" Lin Feng's smiling face suddenly changed. A beam of cold light shot out from his eyes. "What do you mean by this? If you are here to congratulate me on my wedding, I, Lin Feng, welcome you. But if you are not, please turn around and leave as far as you can. You're not welcome here." His voice was calm, but it was like a bolt of lightning. All the guests were shocked, including the two saints kneeling on the ground. Their faces turned green and white. Did they hear wrongly? Inziyuan was stunned speechless. He thought that he could borrow Brown King's power to get his revenge. He wanted to get rid of Lin Feng to avenge his son. He did not expect that Lin Feng was not only not afraid of Brown King, he was even chasing him away. He completely ignored Brown King. His body trembled. Even though Brown King was calm, he was still angered. It was the first time someone pointed at his face and chased him away. In front of everyone, it was as though someone had stepped on his face. Lai Feng, who was beside him, could not control his temper. He glared at Brown King. "Little bastard, you must be tired of living." Instantly, bang! Brown King's eyes shot out light. His aura exploded. The terrifying energy formed a gigantic vacuum. The constellations behind Qin Wentian flickered. Their embryonic forms could already be seen. Although they were all high-level saints, there were differences in strength. For someone like Brown King, he was already close to the peak of the saint realm. Brown King raised his head and clenched his teeth. Repeat what you said just now. Killing intent. Extremely dense killing intent. The surrounding guests were shocked. They had truly witnessed the strength of the strongest martial artist in Huang Hezhou. Brown King was truly enraged. But, do you not understand human language? Or are you deaf? Lin Feng's expression was still calm, but the provocation and recklessness in his words increased. He looked at Brown King and the other two as though he was looking at three clowns. His eyes darkened. Today is my big day. I don't want to kill. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I will give you one last chance. Now, scram. Thunder rumbled. Lin Feng's words penetrated everyone's heart. No one had expected that Lin Feng would not show any mercy to this legendary martial artist. He was chasing him away like a beggar. Scram. He actually asked the famous king of the 9 provinces to scram. How arrogant was he? Everyone felt their hands and feet trembling. Cold sweat dripped down their foreheads. They felt a chill down their spines. They crawled on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. Everyone knew that an earth-shattering battle was about to happen. Brown King would not take this lying down and allow Lin Feng to humiliate him. He was the king of the 9 provinces. You're courting death. The skull necklace on Brown King's neck was shining brightly. His terrifying aura combined with his stellar energy. Lai Feng and Yin Ziyuan both retreated with solemn expressions. Obviously, Lin Feng was not a pushover. Since he was so powerful as a saint, he would not act rashly. Lin Feng dared to be so unscrupulous. This meant that he was truly powerful. Lai Feng was not stupid, and neither was Brown King. However, the current situation did not allow them to take a step back. If it was an ordinary martial artist, they would not be able to take this lying down, let alone in front of so many people. How could he, the king of the 9 provinces and the king of the Yellow Crane continent, get out of this embarrassing situation? How could he take this lying down? Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he stood upright. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, Brown King was a godlike existence. However, in his eyes, he was nothing. What was he? He had even killed a high-level law enforcer of the ancient race, not to mention a mere high-level saint. Even if Yin Ziyuan and Lai Feng joined forces, he was confident that he could take down Brown King. Today was a big day for him and Qianqian. Although he did not want to see blood, he was even more unwilling to bow down to her. If you advance 1 foot, I will advance 10 feet. Moreover, there should be an end to this matter. You're courting death. Lin Feng's expression was calm. The devouring fire had already ignited in his hands. His eyes narrowed. Currently, the Vastar pupil and Vastar pupil could not unleash their full strength because the opponent was too weak. Even the so-called king of the 9 provinces could not force him to unleash his full strength. In less than 3 moves, the battle would end. Lin Feng was slightly startled and frowned. He sensed a few more forces approaching at an extremely fast speed. Among them, there were 2 auras that were even stronger than Brown King. Peak Saint. Interesting. Lin Feng was not afraid. Instead, he smiled. Come on, let's finish this in one go. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. This time, he directly entered his own state. The light in his eyes had completely transformed from the first grade to the top grade. His strength had increased by a huge margin. After reaching 70% Saint, he had not truly used the power of his eyes. This time, he could test how strong he was. It's been a long time since I had a good battle. Lin Feng clenched his fists. The battle blood in his body seemed to be burning. That feeling was very exciting and comfortable. He enjoyed it very much. The last time he fought with the ancient law enforcers, he did not enjoy himself to the fullest. Come on. Lin Feng's figure flashed. 50% of his speed. Misty cloud steps. Lin Feng's voice was leisurely as he displayed his movement technique. A few afterimages streaked across the sky. His extremely fast movement speed and strange transformations caused the space around him to change rapidly. The vast star pupil gave him an even stronger spatial transformation ability. Whether it was his speed or his transformations, they were all completed in an instant, just like a ghost. What? The Brown King was shocked. He felt Lin Feng's aura disappear and reappear in an instant. The whole process was like a flash of lightning. So fast. The Brown King was shocked. Isn't he a celestial spirit master? The Brown King did not expect this at all. It was hard to imagine that a celestial spirit master could have such abnormal speed. What he did not know was that this was only half of Lin Feng's speed, but it had already surpassed him. Illusion Will-o'-the-Wisp realm. Lin Feng's eyes were dazzling. There was no need to hold back. Since he had already made his move, there was only one way out. Moreover, the other party's reinforcements were about to arrive. Let's kill one first. His eyes were shining. After reaching 70% Saint, this was the first time his eyes had displayed their original power. However, it was only a support. Together with Lin Feng's changing hands and ghostly speed, his hands quickly condensed into flames, forming a power that could disturb one's mind. He directly attacked the Brown King. Fast. Shockingly fast. With the ability of a celestial spirit master, it was completely unexpected for him to attack the enemy in close combat. Boom! The Brown King was caught off guard. Even though he had plenty of combat experience, he had never seen such a combat method before. He was a dignified martial god. Yet the celestial spirit master attacked him first before he could even get close to him. Just as he was hesitating, he saw a fiery illusion in front of him. It wasn't an attack. It was a control technique, confusion. Oh no! The Brown King suddenly felt dizzy and horrified. What terrifying eyes! The control of the star technique itself became secondary. Under the illusion of his eyes, the sudden burst of power made him feel astonished. At this moment, the Brown King was already secretly regretting it. He really felt that the situation was tricky because of Lin Feng's strength. However, he no longer had the time to think about that, let alone think about it. It was because he was already in a predicament. He had to take a gamble. Divine Skeleton General, the Brown King hollered, his eyes glistening. There was no soul at all. The skull necklace on his neck shone brightly. Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp in surprise. The Brown King was clearly trapped in the will-o'-wisp realm's illusion, but he was still able to activate the innate treasure with his tenacity. This skull necklace was truly magical. Hey, the transitional episode is coming to an end. From tomorrow onwards, we'll enter the last volume of the Do Spirit World. Chapter 1168. Pa, pa, pa. One by one, the skulls turned into skeleton deity generals. There were a total of 18 of them. With 18 different weapons in their hands, they were almost the same size as the Brown King, filling up the entire space. Innate spirit treasures of the summoning type, be it attack, defense, or control, they were all powerful. With the appearance of the 18 skeleton deity generals, the situation seemed to be even. But that was just how it looked. What a pity! Lin Feng's voice was calm, but the fire in his hands was bright. The attacks from the 18 types of weapons instantly arrived, but their strength was nothing more than that. Perhaps they were rather useful against heavenly spirit masters and heavenly soul masters, but they were completely useless against him. Because these skeleton deity generals were the purest warriors, using pure physical strength. Pump! Lin Feng roared, and the fire filled the sky. The fire was like an arrow, piercing through the body of one of the skeleton deity generals, burning it and opening up a path. The divine skeleton generals that had been killed began to gather again as the light from the skeletons shone. It was as if they were immortal, but they couldn't hurt him. What? Lai Feng's face changed. He didn't think that Lin Feng would be able to break through the encirclement of the skeleton deity generals. He had experienced this technique before, and it was very troublesome to kill these skeleton deity generals. To break through them, one had to use up all their energy and two had to use control techniques to delay them. He didn't think that there was a third way. He completely ignored the skeleton deity generals. Their pure strength attacks couldn't hurt Lin Feng at all. What kind of monster was this Lin Feng? Lai Feng's eyes were wide open, and his heart was filled with shock. Yin Ziyuan's body was trembling, and he felt a strange sense of fear and panic. At this time, the Brown King, who had just escaped from the Ghostfire realm, saw a terrifying fire dragon appear in front of him, as if it was going to swallow everything. It was as if the Grim Reaper had opened the gates of hell. No! The Brown King's face was filled with fear. It was the first time he felt that death was so close to him. He didn't think that Lin Feng would be so strong. It was terrifying to the extreme. Blood demon body. Brown King had no time to care about anything else. His first reaction was to explode with all his strength and construct his strongest defense. The dark red armor on his body shone brightly, flashing with a demonic brilliance. Instantly fusing with the Brown King's body, a demonic power appeared in the blink of an eye. Pata, pata, like a sticky liquid, it seeped into every inch of his skin. The Brown King's face was sinister. The veins all over his body were exposed, and his skin was exposed. His body expanded, and the dark red star armor suddenly changed, as if he was possessed by a demon. Ah! The Brown King roared. Although he had built up all his defenses, but he could still feel the deep threat of death. It was so terrifying. At this moment, have mercy! In the distance, an anxious voice pierced through the sky like thunder. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, but he did not stop. Instead, he changed the devouring flame in his hand again. The flame of rebirth instantly poured in, and an extremely loud explosion sounded. Lin Feng showed no mercy to the mutated Brown King. However, as the voice sounded, a golden light appeared. It wrapped around the Brown King's body, forming a protective light barrier to resist the damage. Bang! Lin Feng's fire fell. The devouring flame and the flame of rebirth mixed together, and the combination of the Path of Saints made the fire dragon's eyes shine brightly. The terrifying power condensed with the strength of the star source instantly penetrated the light barrier and hit the Brown King. Bang! The violent explosion and the Brown King's miserable scream formed a beautiful melody. Everyone was stupefied by this. All of this happened in a split second, but it was enough to intimidate. First, it was the arrival of the mysterious person, then Lin Feng, who directly attacked the Brown King as if he was in an unstoppable state, and no one knew whether he was alive or dead. The surroundings were silent. Many brave people had already raised their heads to peek at the battle that they had never seen in their lives. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He did not chase after the Brown King. Instead, he nimbly jumped back and returned to the starting point of the attack. If he wanted to kill the Brown King, it would be easy. Before the experts arrived, he could kill the Brown King dozens of times. However, it was meaningless. Although the golden barrier weakened half of his power, his attack was enough to seriously injure the Brown King and make him lose his ability to fight. The key was, behind him, there was Qianqian. Although she was protected by Hong Ling, he was afraid that the Brown King would lose his mind and affect Qianqian. Hong Ling's strength was not enough to resist. Ta! Lin Feng floated in the air. Behind him was Hong Ling, who had a cold face, and Qianqian, whose beautiful eyes were wide open. This was the first time she saw Lin Feng's true strength. He actually killed the legendary Brown King in one move. Only after seeing it with her own eyes did she know how strong Lin Feng was now. Not only Qianqian, but Wu Dong also saw Lin Feng's strength for the first time. It made him feel suffocated. He was very glad that he had made the choice to kill the Brown King in one move. How terrifying and terrifying was his strength. If only he could become his disciple. The scene was so beautiful that Wu Dong could not imagine it. On the other hand, Ji Xiao was rather calm. Although he was shocked, he had long become numb to Lin Feng's freakish strength. Whoosh! 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 Silhouettes appeared one after another. There were a total of 8 of them. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at the thick-browed man in the lead. His aura was as heavy as Mount Tai. Unlike the others, he did not have any celestial bodies flashing behind him, but there was a shining star mark on his forehead. The hook-nosed man beside him also did not have any celestial bodies, but their auras could not be hidden from him. Very strong, even stronger than the Brown King. Two peak saints, Lin Feng said calmly, but he was not in a hurry. He just stood there quietly. Although the other party's aura was strong, it was as if they were defending themselves and did not have any killing intent or battle intent. The hook-nosed man looked at him with fear, and his expression was rather complicated. The thick-browed man came to the Brown King's side and frowned. The other 6 saints stood behind the 2 of them, and their positions were clearly different. The battle suddenly stopped for a short time. Many people around could not hold back their curiosity and were secretly watching. Although they were shocked by the arrival of so many saints, they did not recognize any of them. Not to mention them, even the 2 saints who were half kneeling on the ground did not recognize the 8 saints. They were very unfamiliar. Pa! The thick-browed man took out a star fruit and forced it into the Brown King's mouth, his expression solemn. After the star fruit entered his stomach, the Brown King's pale face finally started to recover. Although he was still heavily injured, at least he was still alive, and there would not be any side effects. Second senior brother. The Brown King struggled to speak, his face twisted. You must help me. Enough. King Lu frowned and shouted. The Brown King did not dare to make a sound. His expression was ugly, but he did not know what had happened. King Lu sighed deeply. His head was aching. He had tried his best to rush over, but he did not expect to be one step too late. This was a huge difference. Originally, he wanted to recruit Lin Feng. Firstly, he would have one more talent on his side, and secondly, King Yin would have one less talent on his side, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But the Brown King had ruined it. How could he not be angry? But the Brown King was still a loyal follower of him, and he could not bear to scold him too much. Stop talking, rest for a while, I will settle this. The Brown King nodded blankly. Although he did not know why King Lu was acting strangely, the Brown King was relieved that his 2nd senior brother would stand up for him. Moreover, his 6th senior brother had come with him this time. Clenching his fists, the Brown King felt powerless. Thinking of how powerful Lin Feng was just now, he was terrified. His strength was slowly recovering, but he was still hesitant. Could his 2nd senior brother and 6th senior brother really win against Lin Feng? Wait, the Brown King's expression changed. Why would his 2nd senior brother and 6th senior brother be here? Their eyes met. Lin Feng and King Lu stood in the distance. Just when everyone thought it was going to be another meteor collision, King Lu revealed an amiable smile. Hello, I am the King of South Lu, King Lu. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned. Another king of 9 provinces? And from the looks of it, he was even more impressive than the Brown King. Ordinary martial artists naturally did not know, but the saints all knew. The 2 saints kneeling on one knee were shocked. They did not expect King Lu, the current 2nd in command of the southern region, to come. Not far away, Xiao Jian's expression kept changing. Lin Feng's terrifying strength had already made his heart palpitate. He did not expect King Lu to be so friendly to Lin Feng after seeing that the Brown King was seriously injured. Where did this Lin Feng come from? Lin Feng. Lin Feng replied politely as he didn't want to hit a smiling person. I have heard of your name for a long time. Everyone in the Vermilion Bird continent knows you. I have always wanted to make friends with you, but I never had the chance. King Lu smiled and nodded. His words shocked the Brown King. He did not expect Lin Feng to have such a powerful background that even his 2nd senior brother, King Lu, had to be polite to him. The Brown King's mouth twitched. He felt that he had messed up this time. Judging from his 2nd senior brother's expression, he seemed to have gotten himself into trouble. King Lu, you are too polite. I'm just a nameless junior. Lin Feng's expression was calm. King Lu was obviously very shrewd. Lin Feng had seriously injured his men, but he could still maintain a smile and get close to Lin Feng. They were neither relatives nor friends, but he was so polite. Clearly, he had other motives. Little brother, you are so humble. King Lu chuckled. You're the champion of the blacksmith competition, a high-level saint, and you've even killed a high-level law enforcer of the ancient race. If Brother Lin is considered a nobody, then wouldn't we be worse than a nobody? Wow. Everyone was shocked. After King Lu spoke, everyone's eyes widened. They didn't expect Lin Feng to have such a powerful background. The layman enjoyed the show, while the expert appreciated the skill. In the eyes of ordinary people, Lin Feng was the champion of the blacksmith competition. He was a high-level saint. How noble was that? However, in the eyes of Saint, killing a high-level law enforcer of the ancient race was the most terrifying thing. That was an expert of the ancient race. Even someone as powerful as King Lu did not dare to say that he could kill a high-level law enforcer of the ancient race. However, this ordinary-looking young man had done it. No one doubted King Lu's words. In fact, judging from Lin Feng's expression, what he said was true. The Brown King was shocked, and his face turned pale. Chapter 1169. For words, looking for trouble when you have nothing to do. The Brown King wished he could slap himself. He was really looking for death this time. He did not even investigate the other party's background before he went to look for trouble. It was not that Lai Feng did not have any concerns, but he was too arrogant. He thought that Lin Feng was just a kid who came out of nowhere and could not be that strong. Who would have thought that he could even kill a senior law enforcer of the ancient race? Killing him would be as easy as stepping on an ant. And that was the truth. Damn it. The Brown King hated Yin Ziyuan. He was the one who started it all. Although he had some friendship with Yin Ziyuan's grandfather, it was not as deep as Lai Feng's. The reason why he stood out this time was mainly because of Lai Feng. But he had to pay such a heavy price. And now, Yin Ziyuan was in a state of shock. King Lu's words seemed to have thrown him into hell. He did not expect Lin Feng to have such a strong background. He was so strong that even King Lu had to be wary of him. What was he? A mere beginner's saint to him. Yin Ziyuan staggered slightly. His expression was ugly as he felt that things were not going well. The situation was confusing as if he had entered a maze. He could not figure out Lin Feng's strength, and the Brown King was heavily injured. What confused him the most was King Lu's attitude. Of the 36 stratagems, escape was the best. Yin Ziyuan clenched his teeth and was determined. Let's go. With a pale face, Yin Ziyuan turned to leave. But Pa! A figure suddenly appeared in front of him and floated in the air. That hooked nose was as sharp as his eyes. It was King Han. Where do you want to go? King Han's voice was very calm, but it made Yin Ziyuan's heart turn to ashes. Brother Lin, this is a misunderstanding from the beginning. King Lu smiled. At this moment, King Han had already grabbed Yin Ziyuan like a chicken. The latter was like a defeated rooster. His eyes were unfocused, and he did not have the strength to resist at all. He might be a saint, but the difference between saints was huge. Moreover, King Han was not an ordinary saint. It was easy to catch him. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he looked at King Lu's group, then at Brown King and Yin Ziyuan. It was obvious that everyone, including the Brown King, followed King Lu's lead. His words carried a lot of weight. Judging from King Lu's attitude toward him, even if they were not friends, they were not enemies either. King Lu was deliberately trying to win him over or even curry favor with him. I've investigated this matter thoroughly. He's the one who's trying to drive a wedge between us. King Lu's gaze was profound as he spoke. Yin Ziyuan's originally pale complexion turned even more ashen. He was already completely stupefied. The Brown King was impulsive. That's why he was instigated by others. I hope little brother can forgive him. It was better to turn this matter into a small one and a small one into nothing. Today is Brother Lin's big day. We should focus on the celebration and not add to the troubles. Prince Lu said slowly. First, he wanted to protect the Brown King, and second, he did not want to offend Lin Feng. Whoosh! The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect that the Brown King King Lu, and so many saints would face Lin Feng alone. Did they just admit defeat? Fine. Lin Feng's voice was calm. He glanced at Qianqian. He did not want to turn the wedding into a bloodbath either. For King Lu's sake, I can't forget about this matter, but... Lin Feng paused and looked at King Lu. Then he said slowly, King Lu, shouldn't you give me an explanation? King Lu's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, of course. He raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. In an instant, crack! A fragile sound was heard. Everyone's eyes widened in shock as they looked at the scene before them. Starlight shone from King Han's forehead. Rich astral energy spread out. Yin Ziyuan's neck turned 180 degrees and was broken. A dignified saint had been killed in front of everyone, just like that. All because of one sentence from Lin Feng. Indifferently looking at Yin Ziyuan, Lin Feng's expression was calm. There was no mercy, no sympathy. He had given him a chance, but he did not cherish it. Who could he blame? He let him go that day. He could kill him today. With his strength, he would not be able to escape. Even if King Lu and the others wanted to protect him, he would not be able to survive. He brought this upon himself. Brother Lin, are you satisfied? King Lu smiled. Lin Feng looked up and glanced at King Lu and Lai Feng. It seems he is not the only one who came to stop my wedding. With that said, Brown King and Lai Feng's expressions changed. Lu King and Han King's eyes flashed at the same time, and an intense aura burst out. They did not care if Yin Ziyuan died. They could accept Lai Feng's death as well. But King Lu's status was different. Brother Lin, don't you think you're going overboard? King Lu's expression changed. He suppressed his emotions and said in a low voice, my 10th junior brother is injured. King Lu, you are mistaken. That is not what I meant. Lin Feng interrupted. This started with Yin Ziyuan. His death is enough. As the saying goes, every wrong has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Of course, I will distinguish right from wrong. Since the king of Lu and the others were so nice to him, he would not push his luck too far. Moreover, there was no need to make things so awkward with King Lu and the others. It was better to have more friends than more enemies. Brother Lin, what do you mean? King Lu frowned and his expression softened. Smiling faintly, Lin Feng glanced at Qianqian from the corner of his eyes and said slowly, although King Brown and Lai Feng were instigated by others, it is true that they disrupted my wedding. I don't care about it personally, but in terms of sentiment and reason, shouldn't you apologize to my wife? As soon as he spoke, an uproar broke out. To make two famous saints apologize to an ordinary person? One of them was the king of Yellow Crane State, King Lu. Furthermore, under the watchful eyes of so many people, King Lu and Lai Feng's faces turned pale. They had never been humiliated like this before. Apologizing seemed easy, but it was harder than ascending to the heavens. To many martial artists, pride and face were more important than anything else. A warrior would rather be killed than humiliated. King Lu's expression changed, and he hesitated. If it was before, he would not have to compromise and would have killed Lin Feng. But now that he met him face to face, he knew how strong his opponent was. Lin Feng was unfathomable. Even if he could not win over such a martial artist, at least he did not want to become his enemy. King Lu's hesitation made King Lu's face turn ashen. After following King Lu for so long, King Lu knew his temperament. Maybe King Lu would not push him to his death for Lin Feng, but now he had to give an explanation. I'm sorry. King Lu lowered his head, his face flushed red. His dispirited expression became even more ashamed. Sensing the astonished and shocked gazes around him, the Brown King clearly knew how shameful and ashamed his actions were, but he had no other choice. He had to endure. He clenched his fists so tightly that his veins were popping out. King Lu chose to swallow his anger. To achieve great things, one should not bother about trifles. Coward! Lai Feng stared angrily and gritted his teeth. He despised King Lu's choice and looked at Lin Feng with his bell-like eyes. Lai Feng was like a raging bull, but he knew that he was doomed today. Not to mention Lin Feng. If he did not apologize, King Lu would probably do something because he was not King Lu. Even if I die, Lai Feng, will not frown. Lai Feng raised his head proudly. I admit defeat today. You win, Lin Feng. Letting out a cold snort, Lai Feng's veins suddenly popped out. A red light flashed in his hand, and a dense amount of star source energy instantly gushed out. With a roar, he instantly broke his left arm with a cracking sound. His teeth were clenched so hard that they bled. His face was pale, but Lai Feng didn't make a sound. This left arm is enough for me to explain, right? Lai Feng threw his left arm away and looked at Lin Feng, his voice weak. Brother Lin just wants you to apologize. What is the meaning of this? King Lu said unhappily. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He looked at King Lu and said indifferently, All right, you can leave. Umph. Like a cow's nose, Lai Feng turned and left. He did not even look at King Lu, which made King Lu even more embarrassed. Compared to Lai Feng's courage, King Lu's apology was much more cowardly. King Lu hated Lai Feng even more. Looking at Lai Feng's back view, Lin Feng's gaze was indifferent. In comparison, he admired Lai Feng more. Maybe they were on different sides, but Lai Feng was a man worthy of respect. All right, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, we will take our leave. King Lu nodded and said, Here, congratulations to Brother Lin, on your wedding. With a snap of his fingers, the saint behind him carried a brand new pearl box and placed it on the ground. King Lu smiled. I came in a rush and did not prepare anything. Here are 1,000,000 star crystals as a congratulatory gift. I hope Brother Lin does not mind. Why would I? King Lu is too considerate. Lin Feng smiled. See you again. King Lu's eyes flashed as he cupped his hands. See you again. Lin Feng returned the gesture. With a wave of his hand, King Lu led the crowd and left. However, they came in a hurry and left in a hurry, leaving behind a crowd of dumbstruck and incomparably astounded people. They watched as these great figures left, and then they looked at Lin Feng, who still wore a valiant ceremonial robe. He seemed so mysterious and lofty, like a bottomless lake, and it caused their hearts to tremble. Who exactly is this Lin Feng? The wedding venue was cleaned up very quickly. There did not seem to be any changes, but everyone's state of mind was completely different. However, to Lin Feng, he did not feel anything. Whether it was the Brown King or King Lu, they were just a small interlude. Whether they were here or not, whether they came or not, it did not matter. The main character today was only Qian. To him, this was also an unforgettable moment. Marrying her was not only a promise, but also a responsibility. It was also the result of love. Marry me, Qian. Lin Feng smiled. Yes. Qian answered firmly. She hugged Lin Feng tightly with a face full of happiness. To her, this moment was eternal. Hugging the beauty in his arms, Lin Feng felt a strong sense of happiness. However, to him, the trip to Huanghezhou was just a turning point, a starting point. There were no more challenges in the human world, and his enemies were not these ordinary saints. The real danger, the real enemy, was somewhere in the distant Douling world. There were still many things waiting for him. Father, mother, Xiao Duo, and so on. His path had just begun. There are still some things I have not thought through. The opening of the last volume will be moved forward. Tomorrow, at 3 p.m. Chapter 1170. The grand wedding ended under the watchful eyes of the crowd. The banquet lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and Lin Feng's name had already spread throughout the Yellow Crane continent. On the day of the wedding, he had severely injured the Brown King, forcing the King of Lu and the rest to apologize. Everyone in the Yellow Crane continent gave him a thumbs up. With such strength, he could do whatever he wanted in the entire southern region, or even the human world. The Brown King might not be very strong, but the King of Lu was at the top of the saint level. Look, it's the saints. Really? 2 saints are guarding the door? Wow, this is really extravagant. Outside the main hall of the Qin Chamber of Commerce, everyone was discussing. They were all shocked. At this moment, There were saints guarding the door outside the main hall. How grand! It was enough to show how important the guests in the main hall were, and how confidential matter was. In the main hall of the Qin Chamber of Commerce, there were indeed two important people. They were the King of Lu and the King of Han, who had appeared at the wedding. I wonder what plans Brother Lin has for the future. The King of Lu sipped his tea and probed. Lin Feng smiled. King of Lu, why don't you get straight to the point? One would not visit a temple for no reason. The King of Lu had given him face at the wedding 3 days ago, so he had guessed that he would come. Ha ha, Brother Lin is indeed straightforward. The King of Lu laughed heartily, his eyes shining. Then I won't beat around the bush. Actually, I'm here to invite Brother Lin to join my camp and create a prosperous southern region together. I wonder if Brother Lin is interested? Thank you for your kindness, King of Lu, but I'm used to being alone. Lin Feng declined tactfully. Actually, after the King of Lu left 3 days ago, he had already done a detailed investigation on his background and style. His purpose of recruiting him was obvious. It was because he was not on good terms with King Yin. Now that Emperor Shun had abdicated, the battle for the throne was in full swing. With one more force, King Yin would be weakened, and the situation would be better. Brother Lin, what do you mean? King Lu pondered. The King of Lu is a wise man who pretends to be foolish. How could he not understand? Lin Feng smiled indifferently and said slowly, I have no intention of fighting for fame and fortune. I only wish to live a normal life with my wife. It was not that he was afraid of the King of Lu, but that he did not want to be involved in such a power struggle. There were indeed more disadvantages than benefits. So Brother Lin, and King Yin. King Lu's eyes lit up, but he was still unsure. It doesn't matter. Lin Feng's expression was calm. King Lu, you should know that I am from the Yinling Prefecture, not from the Vermilion Bird Continent. I have never met King Yin before, so there is no friendship between us. Moreover, after a slight pause, Lin Feng smiled and said, To tell you the truth, I will be leaving the southern region in a few days. The King of Lu said softly, Oh, where's Brother Lin going, Brother Lin? The boorish wilderness. Lin Feng nodded and said, It will take a few months to a few years. I have important private matters to attend to. Looking at the King of Lu, Lin Feng smiled faintly and said, So, no matter how much you want to fight, there is nothing I can do. This trip is extremely dangerous. To be honest, I don't even know if I can return safely. Brother Lin is too humble. With your strength, you can dominate the boorish wilderness, unless... The King of Lu looked at Lin Feng with burning eyes. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He said softly, The King of Lu's guess is correct. I am heading to the ancient clan's territory. The King of Lu nodded thoughtfully. He knew that Lin Feng had a grudge against the ancient clan. In the Vermilion Bird Continent, Lin Feng had killed 3 law enforcers of the ancient clan. One of them was a high-ranking law enforcer. The ancient clan would not take this lying down. All right then, I won't force you. The King of Lu smiled and stood up. He was very decisive. However, Brother Lin, if you ever change your mind, you are welcome to come to the South Lu continent. Here, with tea as wine, I wish you a safe journey, Brother Lin. After saying that, he drank the cup in one gulp. Thank you, King of Lu. Lin Feng stood up and drank with a smile. We will take our leave first. See you again. The King of Lu put down his teacup. King Han also bowed slightly. All right, see you again. Lin Feng nodded. Watching the two leave, Lin Feng felt a myriad of emotions. He naturally knew that the winner of the battle for the Emperor's throne would be able to rule the entire southern region and sit on the Emperor's throne. He had to admit that this was a very attractive condition. However, he did not have the time to think about this. Instead of fighting for fame and fortune, he might as well make good use of this time. He had to make a trip to the ancient clan, not only for his identity, but also for his promise to Feng Ming. As for the Emperor's throne, it did not matter. These titles were only derived from strength and were not stable. With strength, even if he was not the Emperor's throne, he would be able to call for help, just like how he was in the Lin clan. Without strength, even if he sat on the Emperor's throne, he would only be a hot potato, or he would become a puppet. The human demon Holy Lord must have a motive for entering the southern region. From the looks of it, it is most likely for the battle for the Emperor's throne. With his title of human traitor, he is like a rat on the street in other places. However, this open battle for the Emperor's throne is just what he wants. It will be a stepping stone for him to rise again. Lin Feng pondered. One of the reasons why he did not want to participate in the battle for the Emperor's throne was because of the human demon Holy Lord. Currently, he was not his opponent. Even if his strength had increased greatly, he was confident that he could win against any saint, but against a legendary character, a Saint King, he was powerless. If it wasn't for Shui Yume that day, he would have been killed long ago. It was too stupid to fight head-on. After King Lu and the others left, the Qin Chamber of Commerce returned to peace. After the wedding ended, everyone in the Qin Chamber of Commerce became busy again. In these 3 days, Qin Run did not rest for a moment. He cleaned up the affairs of the Chamber of Commerce. He sold what needed to be sold and cut off what needed to be cut off. Now, all the members of the Qin Chamber of Commerce had been arranged. "Thank you, seniors." Lin Feng smiled. In front, 2 elders with white hair and youthful faces had completed the construction of the teleportation channel. A white light shone in all directions. Everyone in the Qin Chamber of Commerce stared blankly. It was the first time they saw a real teleportation channel. It was much more advanced than a teleportation array. Everyone was talking about it. "Vice President, you are too polite. It's just a small matter." "That's right. Let's help each other and cooperate more in the future." The 2 old men chuckled, their words filled with reverence. Of course, Lin Feng smiled. The 2 elders were elders of the Inscription Masters Union. Building a teleportation channel was easy for them. With his status and strength, it was also easy to ask for their help. In fact, the 2 elders were eager to help and earn a favor. After some small talk, very soon, under the 2 elders' activation, the 2 teleportation channels officially began to be used. The people of the Qin Chamber of Commerce lined up in 2 rows. Each of them was full of anticipation and hesitation as they slowly left the hometown they grew up in. "Do you miss it?" Lin Feng looked at Qianqian with a smile. Qianqian shook her head gently and looked at Lin Feng. She smiled sweetly. "I just want to be by Lin De Ji's side." "Silly girl," Lin Feng said with a smile. The legend of Lin Feng circulated in the Yellow Crane State. However, he had already left. There were millions of people in the Qin Chamber of Commerce. Even if there were 2 teleportation channels, it would not be possible to teleport them all. Lin Feng would not wait. Jixia and Wudong had already returned to the Lin clan in Shiluo County with his new wife, Qianqian. The destination of the teleportation channel was the Lin clan. At this time, because of the Qin Chamber of Commerce, Lin Zhen was also very busy. It was not easy to move the clan. However, the true pillar of the Lin clan, the patriarch behind the scenes, Lin Feng, had spoken. "Who would dare to say no? Have you decided, Brother Ji?" Lin Feng's eyes lit up. "Yes, I still like to stay here. Perhaps the competition and pressure are great, but this is the real challenge." Jixia's eyes lit up as he spoke slowly. He had the heart of a true warrior. After leaving the Yanling Prefecture, Jixia wanted to embark on the path of the strong. Now that he had this opportunity, he naturally would not miss it. "All right then." Lin Feng nodded slowly. He had already guessed it. With Jixia's personality, he was indeed not suitable for such a comfortable life in the kingdom of Maru. "Wudong, what about you?" Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. "I will listen to young master's orders." Wudong knelt on one knee. Since he had witnessed Lin Feng's strength, he had changed the way he addressed him from saint to young master. Lin Feng looked at Wudong and said slowly, "Are you willing to follow Madam back to the kingdom of Maru?" "Yes, young master." Wudong did not hesitate. Lin Feng looked at Wudong. This young man from a poor background knew how to seize opportunities. In short, he was very smart. Perhaps in the short term, going to the kingdom of Maru would hinder his cultivation and slow his progress. However, he had been by Qianqian's side for many years and had served him well. It was reasonable that he would not mistreat him. With Qianqian's kind personality, she would naturally do her best to help him. Get up. Lin Feng nodded slightly. Take good care, madam. I will not mistreat you. You will be my disciple for now. In 100 years, I will officially accept you as my second disciple. Wu Dong trembled and cried tears of joy. For a humble martial artist like him, Lin Feng's words were like a gold ingot falling from the sky, hitting him on the head with happiness. He was willing to take 1,000 years or even 10,000 years, let alone 100 years. He had witnessed Lin Feng's strength with his own eyes. He was truly an expert who could surpass the heavens. By becoming Lin Feng's disciple, he had truly made a leap into the dragon's gate. Thank you, young master. No, thank you, master. Wu Dong knelt down and kowtowed 3 times to complete the ceremony of apprenticeship. Ji Xiao's eyes flashed with excessive envy. He gently pursed his lips, but he could not let go of his pride. With his status, as long as he asked, neither Qianqian nor Lin Feng would refuse his request. However, he could not let go of his pride. Clenching his fists, Ji Xiao's eyes flashed with determination. He believed that even if he relied on himself, he would be able to become stronger, just like Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled. He did not stop Wu Dong from becoming his disciple, just as he did not persuade Ji Xia. Everyone had their own path to walk. Whether it was right or wrong, one would only know when one walked it. This was his choice. Next chapter, 2200 hours. Chapter 1171. Shiluo County was bustling with activity. With the return of Lin Feng, a big investment was made. A huge sum of money fell into Shiluo County, and at an average price of 30% higher than the market price, he bought land, shops, auction houses, and so on. The establishment of the Qin Chamber of Commerce was like a thunder in spring. The name of the boss behind the scenes, Lin Feng, reverberated like thunder. Even the largest Luo clan chamber of commerce in the Vermilion Bird Continent had to avoid him. Who dared to offend Lin Feng now? Lin Feng's deeds of killing the 3 ancients on the day of the wedding had already spread throughout the Vermilion Bird Continent. Not to mention, Lin Feng also wore the hat of vice president of the Union of Artificers. His background was very strong. Soon, just a few days after the establishment of the Qin Chamber of Commerce, countless large and small forces came to discuss cooperation, including the Lin clan. They appointed the Qin Chamber of Commerce as a direct seller of artifacts. It was a family behind closed doors. And now, Lin Feng was no longer in Shiluo County. Building a teleportation channel from the Yellow Crane Continent to the Vermilion Bird Continent was simple, but building a long-distance teleportation channel from the Vermilion Bird Continent to the Kingdom of Meru was not easy. However, wealth could reach the sky. With Lin Feng's wealth and reputation, he completed it in 2 days with the help of Master Yin Qing. At this time, he had already returned to his hometown with Yuma and Qianqian. He returned to his hometown. In fact, Lin Feng was the retired emperor of the Kingdom of Meru. In Shiluo County and the Vermilion Bird Continent, Lin Feng was like a hero, a godlike existence. His reputation was built on his strength. In the Kingdom of Meru, every warrior respected Lin Feng from the bottom of their hearts. They worshipped Lin Feng and knelt down like a god. Every city had a statue of Lin Feng. Whether it was the common people, merchants, or nobles, they were all very pious. Without Lin Feng, there would be no the Kingdom of Meru today. Holy King, wow, it's so beautiful. This was the first time Lin Yuma and Qin Qianqian had come to the hunting country. The 3 of them transformed into commoners. Lin Feng took the 2 girls for a stroll in the city, experiencing the purest local customs. Wu Dong followed behind them. The Kingdom of Meru, which was under the rule of Lin Yun, was now peaceful and peaceful. Everyone lived and worked in peace and contentment, and the sound of pleasant laughter could be heard everywhere. Lindigo, what is that? Qin Qianqian pointed straight ahead. What a huge golden statue! Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flashed. By the time Lin Feng raised his head and looked ahead, the 2 girls had already disappeared without a trace, and Wu Dong was right behind them. With a carefree smile, Lin Feng immediately followed. Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he arrived in the middle of the two girls. At this time, Lin Yuma and Qin Qianqian raised their heads and looked at the huge golden eagle that was hundreds of feet tall. Looking at the golden statue in a daze, the two girls' beautiful eyes flashed, and their small mouths opened in surprise. At this time, how dare you? Impudent! In an instant, there was a burst of angry voices around them. In front of the golden statue, there were thousands of people kneeling and worshipping sincerely, and no one was standing. Only Lin Feng and the other three looked so awkward. Seeing that the four of them were ignoring the statue, it immediately aroused the anger of the crowd, and the scolding came like a wave. Lin Yuma and Qin Qianqian were also shocked, but they still saw the golden statue clearly. Including Lin Feng, who had already seen it, smiled bitterly. Lindigo, why does this golden statue look so much like you? Qin Qianqian asked hesitantly. Although her voice was not loud, everyone heard it. It was like lighting a fuse, adding fuel to the fire, and the crowd was furious. How dare you insult the Sage Emperor? Everyone go, catch them. Disrespect to the Sage Emperor is a capital offense. Qin Qianqian's face turned pale with fright. Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes sparkled as she looked at the golden statue thoughtfully. Lin Feng, on the other hand, had a bitter look on his face. Seeing the crowd rushing over like a mob, he could neither advance nor retreat. How could he not know that the golden statue was actually him? His younger brother Lin Yin had mentioned it before, but he did not take it to heart. In fact, this was the first time he saw it. These angry commoners worshipped him as if he was a god, and they were so devout. He had no reason to hurt them, but he was even more unwilling to let them affect Qianqian. In an instant, Lin Feng's chi spread out with a bang. He used a bit of gentleness to separate the crowd. But, strange. Lin Feng frowned slightly as a thought struck him. He felt that the force he separated seemed to have a different existence. Was it an illusion? Looking at the crowd, the strongest was only at the Star River level. Their angry expressions were not fake, but real. However, he felt that something was wrong. It was as if there was a pair of invisible hands pushing them. It was very strange. Let's go. Lin Feng looked at Yuma and Qianqian and said softly. Although he had doubts, now was not the time to resolve them. Leaving was the best option. There was no need to explain. Should he tell the surrounding martial artists that he was Lin Feng, the Holy King? Would they believe him? It was better to leave to avoid any more conflicts. Lin Yuma and Qin Qianqian did not reply. Suddenly, Lin Feng frowned. He felt a powerful force rushing over at an extremely fast speed. He was surprised. The force was very familiar. Lin Feng said softly, "Oh," and looked back. In an instant, whoosh, a fiery red figure came straight at them. Audacious madman, how dare you cause trouble here? A delicate voice came from afar. It was a delicate and petite figure with white teeth and moon-like eyebrows. Her aura was quite powerful. Wu Dong's eyes lit up. He stood in front to protect his master loyally. The strength of a newcomer was much stronger than these ordinary martial artists. Star Lord level. It's Hunter Master Qin. Everyone back off. The Hunter Master is here. Great. Surprised voices sounded. Everyone quickly backed off. This fiery red figure seemed to have an extremely high reputation here and was respected by everyone. Hunter Master Qin. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He knew who the newcomer was. Since the establishment of the Kingdom of Meru, the Hunter Master had changed a lot. Although Lan Hiyu still had the title of Hunting Master, he rarely showed himself. The current master of the Hunting Master was the new Hunting Master, Qinro. She was also his first disciple. How have you been? Lin Feng's figure flashed slightly. He stood in front of Wu Dong to avoid unnecessary conflict. Qinro's flying figure finally saw the person who had arrived. Her beautiful eyes widened as the surging aura instantly disappeared without a trace. Her extremely beautiful oval-shaped face was filled with shock, but it quickly turned into a rich joy. "Master!" Qin Rou shouted excitedly. This shout shocked everyone. The people who were like waves just now were all stunned. They looked at everything in front of them in disbelief. They knew Qin Rou. The title of Hunter Master was not in vain. In today's The Kingdom of Meru, Qin Rou's strength was second only to Monarch Lin Yun. And her master, it was none other than the legendary Holy Empire Lord, Lin Feng. There was complete silence. Only now did the people see Lin Feng's true face. Their eyes almost popped out. Although they had never seen the Holy King's true face, their daily worship had long been imprinted in their hearts. Lin Feng's appearance was not exactly similar to the golden statue, but it was 80% or 90% similar. Plus, Qin Rou's shout was enough to explain everything. "Holy King! Is it really the Holy King? Oh my God!" Everyone was shocked. They knelt on the ground in fear, not daring to move an inch. Thinking of how they dared to offend the Holy King just now. It was simply unforgivable. Cold sweat kept coming out of their foreheads. They lowered their heads to the ground, almost prostrating themselves on the ground. The black mass knelt down quietly. They were regretful, but also extremely pious and excited. They had seen the legendary Heavenly Emperor, the ruler of a holy empire. They saw it with their own eyes. Even if they died, it was worth it. Qin Xianqian finally reacted. In fact, the smart Lin Yuma and Wu Dong had already figured it out just now. The three of them were both surprised and happy about Lin Feng's identity. At this moment, Qin Rou's arrival eased the slightly awkward atmosphere. "Master, you're finally back." Qin Rou was overjoyed like a bird returning to its nest. A pair of lively eyes swept across Qin Xianqian and Lin Yuma, secretly amazed by their unbelievable beauty. She bit her lip lightly. They should be master's wives, right? Yes. Lin Feng nodded with a smile and looked at Qin Xianqian and Lin Yuma. "She's my first disciple, Qin Rou." Before he finished speaking, Wu Dong's eyes were already shining. He quickly bowed and cupped his hands. "Greetings, eldest senior sister." However, Qin Rou was shocked. She didn't know how she became the eldest senior sister. "Let's go. We'll talk when we get back." Lin Feng looked at the people around him and nodded slightly. A glint flashed across his eyes. Although he hadn't taken the two girls around enough, he had already caused a stir. It was impossible for him to have a peaceful tour. He believed that the news of his return would spread quickly. Moreover, it was time for him to bring the two girls back to see his mother. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile and look at Qin Xianqian and Lin Yuma. The former was still a little confused, while Lin Yuma was already blushing. A family reunion, was there anything more worth being happy about? She was already very happy to see her son return. Lin Wanqing came out of the kitchen. Now that she had recovered, her face was flushed. However, when she saw Lin Yuma and Qin Xianqian, she was slightly stunned. Her gaze fell on their interlocked arms, and a look of surprise flashed across her eyes. "Aren't you going to greet them?" Lin Feng smiled and said to the two girls. "Mother, mother." The two girls called out softly, their faces flushed. Good, good, good." Lin Wanqing nodded repeatedly. She was so happy that she didn't know what to say. Come in and take a seat. We'll be able to eat soon." Looking at her two daughters-in-law who were as beautiful as fairies, Lin Wanqing couldn't stop smiling. She went into the kitchen happily. Brother, big brother. Lin Yun and Lin Shui'er had already returned home to wait after receiving the news. Wow, the two sisters-in-law are so beautiful. Lin Shui'er's eyes lit up. She skipped over and chatted with Lin Yuma and Qin Xianqian. At this time, Qin Rou had already put on the airs of the eldest senior sister and lectured Wu Dong on the rules of entry. In the blink of an eye, only Lin Feng and Lin Yun were left. "Do you have something to tell me?" Lin Feng's eyes flashed. "How could I not tell?" "Yes, brother." Lin Yun nodded slowly. Chapter 1172. Brother, I suspect that there's something wrong with the myriad-bone scorpion. Lin Yun's gaze was serious. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Why do you say that? Actually, I'm only suspecting it. I'm not sure. Lin Yun hesitated for a moment, then said slowly, in the past 2 years, the number of fights and violent incidents in the Kingdom of Meru has increased year by year. Last year, it increased by 50% compared to the year before, and this year, it's already exceeded last year's by 60%. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Could it be that the use of the Starlight Pill has increased the strength of the martial practitioners in the Kingdom of Meru? That's why there are all kinds of fights. Lin Yun shook his head. At first, I thought so too. That's why when the statistics came out last year, it didn't attract too much attention. But this year, when I was patrolling, I saw a fight with my own eyes. 2 martial practitioners at the apprentice level fought fiercely. It wasn't much at first, but I felt that the violent aura on their bodies was like a pair of invisible hands pushing them, Lin Yun recalled. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He had also felt this just now. Lin Yun was the same as him. His perception was extremely strong, and he had 2 pupils. His strength was also at the star domain level, which was quite strong. When those people were angry just now, their bodies seemed to surge with energy, making them seem like different people. But it was only energy, and it didn't affect their minds. With Qin Ro's arrival, they quickly regained their calm. I saw it too. Lin Feng nodded slowly. It seems that it wasn't my imagination. Lin Yun smiled, his expression turning serious. After I came back, I started to pay attention to these abnormalities. I looked through the various violent incidents in the past 2 years and studied them carefully. Finally, I found something strange. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His intuition told him that things weren't that simple. Brother, you also know that the Kingdom of Meru was divided into 12 counties after it was rebuilt. After careful investigation, I finally found out that 2 of the 12 counties have a much higher proportion of violent fights than the other 10 counties. Lin Yun's eyes flashed. It's more than 5 times. So, Lin Feng moved slightly. Excluding these 2 counties, there is no increase in violence in the other 10 counties. In fact, it seems to be decreasing. Lin Yun said slowly, only these 2 counties are so special. There must be a demon behind this abnormality, and I suspect that this demon is the Myriad Bone Scorpion, because these 2 counties are the closest to the 10,000 Bone Empire. Lin Yun's gaze shot straight ahead. His suspicions were well-founded and not wild guesses. Lin Feng nodded slowly, affirming his brother Lin Yun's conjecture. A gloomy cold wind blew over, and the air here seemed to be filled with the aura of death, decay, and silence. It was a barren border area, and there was a huge cemetery that stretched as far as the eye could see. The stone tablets were crooked, and there was not even a blade of grass growing on the sandy land. Around the huge cemetery, there was a strange atmosphere. All kinds of shadows flashed, and there were ear-piercing cries that sounded like vengeful spirits. In the center, there was a dark and empty existence. There, it was the real 10,000 Bone Dragon. There was not a single ghost. There was a legend in the Chimu continent that anyone who stepped into the boundary of the 10,000 Bone Dragon would be surrounded by ghosts and directly dragged into the 10,000 Bone Dragon, thrown into the 18 levels of hell, and never reincarnated. Compared to the 100 waterfalls and the 1,000 snake cave, this was the truly terrifying existence. That day, I did not step into the boundary. But today, I'm afraid I have to go in and take a look. Lin Feng's expression turned serious, and his heart settled. Previously, he did not enter because he was not strong enough. When he came here, he felt a deep pressure and deterrence, as if there was a terrifying existence. But now that he was here again, he did not feel anything special, but his strength was not the same as before. If you don't enter the tiger's den, you won't get the tiger cub. Enter. Lin Feng's eyes burned, and he took a step forward, stepping into the boundary. The Kingdom of Meru was like a child to him, and now that he had deep feelings for it, he would not allow it to be destroyed by any factors. This was not only the hometown where he grew up, but also countless people who trusted him, respected him, and respected him. He was the Holy King, Protecting the kingdom of Meru was his responsibility. Boom! The moment he stepped in, the surroundings were dark and silent. Countless ghosts seemed to rush out in an instant, and there seemed to be an invisible barrier at the boundary, sealing everything. And as he stepped in, it was as if he had entered another space, and everything was different, completely changed. Ayo! Wong! Wong! There was constant noise in his ears, and illusions kept appearing in front of his eyes, but Lin Feng's eyes were shining brightly. Break for me! With a fierce shout, Lin Feng's expression was calm and composed. He did not even use his own state, but he had already easily broken these so-called illusions. There was no burden. If it was his previous eyes, he would probably need to use his own state to resist, but now, there was no need at all. Step by step, he carefully stepped forward. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and all kinds of ghost-like voices kept appearing in his ears, like the screams and howls of ghosts, as if they were being tortured. But it did not affect his temperament. Since he was young, he had been tested by all kinds of illusions, and now his will was even more firm. Whether it was his spirit or his body, he was top-notch in resisting illusions. However, he had only just stepped into the border. The 10,000-bone centipede is even more terrifying than I imagined. Lin Feng frowned, and his heart jumped. At this time, he inexplicably thought of another dangerous place, the Rashomon Purgatory. At that time, he could not even get close to the boundary, and it felt so terrifying. If it was like the 10,000-bone centipede, and there were two heavens inside and outside the boundary, there was an invisible barrier, then wouldn't that be unimaginable? Lin Feng let out a deep breath and calmed his mind. Now was not the time to think about this. No matter how terrifying the Rashomon Purgatory was, at least it seemed to be sleeping. But the 10,000-bone centipede was like a lion opening its eyes. He kept getting closer. It's here, Lin Feng thought, and his expression changed. The closer he got to the huge cemetery, the more he felt fear spread, as if a heart demon was causing trouble. The stone tablets were crooked and blurred in front of his eyes, and in the center of the huge cemetery, there was a bottomless black forest that seemed to contain a devil. His head a little dizzy, Lin Feng fiercely bit the tip of his tongue. Blood flowed, and Lin Feng's eyes instantly brightened. Self-state. Whoosh! In an instant, all the illusions flashed by. The crooked stone tablet in front of him instantly returned to normal, and the blurry words seemed to become clear. Lin Feng calmly landed on the ground and did not go any further. His hands unconsciously clenched, and he felt his heart palpitate again and again. That terrifying feeling just now was imprinted in his heart. It was very dangerous. His mind had almost been affected by it. Standing outside the huge cemetery, Lin Feng's expression kept changing. The 10,000-bone centipede is not simple. Biting his lips, Lin Feng's expression was slightly ugly. Although he could completely block these illusions in his current state, it had to be known that he had yet to enter the real myriad bone abyss, and had not even stepped into the huge cemetery. He had only been wandering around the periphery of the cemetery. It had such terrifying power. How much danger would there be if he went further in? It was unimaginable. Hesitant, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded out from behind him. The main line is slowly revealed. Chapter 1173. You can't get in? A familiar voice entered his ears. Lin Feng was startled, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Very dangerous. It was so close, but he didn't sense anyone approaching. It wasn't because the other party was strong, but because he had focused all his attention on the huge graveyard. In this gloomy myriad bone ruin, he was caught in an illusion and neglected many things. Feeling the familiar aura, Lin Feng turned his head, and the dignified expression on his face turned into a faint smile. Why are you here? It was a woman blooming like a lotus flower. She stood there indifferently, and her flawless face was breathtakingly beautiful. It was Shui Yume. Who told you to be so restless? Shui Yume frowned and wrinkled her nose. Compared to the coldness they had when they first met, Shui Yume and Lin Feng were now like ordinary friends. Restless? Lin Feng was startled. You mean the myriad bone ruin? Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he instantly reacted. Recalling Shui Yume's words and the timing of her appearance, a big question mark appeared in his heart. Shui Yume's beautiful eyes glanced at the gloomy and terrifying aura. She nodded gently. Master was afraid that you would accidentally trigger the restriction and attack the seal in a fit of anger, causing trouble. Therefore, he asked me to come and stop you, lest you suffer an unexpected disaster. As expected, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. As he had guessed, Tianji Lauren seemed to be very familiar with this myriad bone ruin. Senior, what else did you say? Lin Feng asked. Shui Yume shook her head gently. Just as Lin Feng was feeling slightly disappointed, Shui Yume spoke again. Master wants to see you. Water Curtain Cave. It was vast and boundless, and there were all kinds of coral and jade sculptures. In this palace carved from jade, it gave people a mysterious and lively feeling. No matter when they entered, it would feel fresh and natural. Lin Feng followed Shui Yume into the palace once again and arrived in front of the crystal wall. It reflected all kinds of light, creating a colorful illusion. Master is waiting for you inside, Shui Yume said softly. All right. Lin Feng nodded slowly. In an instant, chi. The surrounding light, rays, rapidly penetrated his body. Lin Feng felt his body being bound once more. The light in front of him was extremely resplendent, and the water in front of him rippled, faintly reflecting the Elder of Heavenly Secrets' blurry face. That pair of resplendent eyes radiated light in all directions. Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up as he activated his own state. Pung! It was as if the energy had touched each other, causing the space to tremble. In an instant, Lin Feng moved, and the surrounding environment changed. Little friend, you didn't disappoint me after we parted that day. A leisurely voice rang out. Lin Feng raised his head and looked forward. Rays of white light converged, forming the appearance of the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. His head of white hair appeared so pale and powerless. His face carried a benevolent smile, but his withered face was like a dying tree. He was extremely emaciated and his life aura was weak. Greetings, Senior. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said respectfully. The old man in front of him was one of the few people he respected the most. He had reminded him several times and saved him several times. It could be said that without him, he wouldn't be who he was now. No need to be so polite. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets raised his hand and made a pleased gesture. Sit. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He nodded and sat down. He didn't exchange any pleasantries because he knew that this was a form of recognition from the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. May I know why Senior is looking for me this time? Lin Feng looked at the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and asked bluntly, Aren't you the one who wants to find me? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets replied ambiguously. He smiled and said, I know you have a lot of questions. Ask away. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, he had a lot of questions that he wanted answers to. Others might not be able to give him an accurate answer, but the omniscient Elder of Heavenly Secrets would definitely know. Senior, I want to know what the myriad bone puppet is. Lin Feng's eyes were like torches. What is the seal that you may mentioned? And why did Senior stop me? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets pondered for a while. His dim eyes flashed, but he didn't answer the question. Do you know why I am here? Lin Feng hesitated. Senior was seriously injured in the second war of the Liches and Demons. Therefore, you're living in seclusion here. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets smiled. Do you remember what you saw when you entered the sacred land? 100 waterfalls? Lin Feng was slightly startled. His eyes flashed. Scenes of the past appeared in his mind. He had entered the 100 waterfalls several times and saw the image of the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. It was controlled by him. Wait. Lin Feng was slightly startled. If the Elder of Heavenly Secrets was seriously injured, why was he so strong in the 100 waterfalls? He raised his head and looked at that weak appearance. It was so real. Actually, I have an independent doppelganger like you. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets' eyes were like torches as he said indifferently. Hua. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. It was just a short sentence, but it made him completely understand. But unlike you, my independent doppelganger is not strong. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets said slowly. His eyes flashed. But its foundation is there. Even if its aptitude is ordinary, after a long time of tempering, my doppelganger's strength has reached the Saint King realm. It can be said that it is even stronger than my original body. Lin Feng nodded and listened carefully. He understood that the controller of the 100 Waterfalls was the Elder of Heavenly Secrets doppelganger. But the Water Curtain Cave was passed down to me by my late master. He also gave me a great mission and responsibility. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets looked at Lin Feng. His expression was calm, but his words were extremely shocking. Suppress the 10,000 bone scorpion for eternity. Punk. Lin Feng's head shook and his expression changed. He didn't expect the Water Curtain Cave's existence to involve the 10,000 bone scorpion in such a way. Of course, with my strength, I can't do it. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets smiled and said, even 10 or 100 of me can't suppress those old bastards in the 10,000 bone scorpion. Even if my late master's strength far surpassed mine, he would still need to borrow the power of the 100 Waterfalls. The 100 Waterfalls? Lin Feng was surprised. As if he had seen through Lin Feng's confusion, Tianji Lauren explained, in fact, 100 Waterfalls is an innate treasure created by the creation of heaven and earth. It can be used to cultivate and refine treasures. However, these functions are only useful to warriors below the martial saint level. For real masters, it has little effect. Its real ability is seal, indiscriminate sealing. Simply put, you can think of the 10,000 bone scorpion as a prison, and the 100 Waterfalls as the gate to the prison, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets said indifferently. Extremely shocking. Lin Feng felt his mouth go dry and his heart beat faster. This was completely beyond his imagination. So the 100 Waterfalls is... Lin Feng looked at the Elder of Heavenly Secrets in shock. Heaven rank, and a very rare heaven rank gold treasure, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets replied. Heaven rank. It really was a legendary heaven rank Khanate treasure. Lin Feng's expression changed, his chest heaving. To him, this information was simply too shocking. Dare I ask, Senior, aren't Khanate treasures only red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, white, and black, a total of 9 colors? Where does gold come from? Lin Feng was extremely curious, because he had once obtained 2 gold treasures, both of which had heaven-defying functions. Gold, also known as the 10th color, refers to special treasures, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets replied. Elder Tianji replied, oftentimes, these types of innate treasures have extremely special functions. If used well, they can even surpass the highest grade of innate treasures. However, under normal circumstances, they're only at an average standard. So that's how it was. Lin Feng nodded. His knowledge had been broadened once more. In other words, this seal was the special function of the 100 Waterfalls. According to the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, the thing that sealed the 10,000 bone scorpion was no ordinary existence. Curious, Lin Feng's eyes shone. Dare I ask, Senior, those old bastards in the 10,000 bone scorpion are Saint King realm experts. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets said indifferently. As for their identity, you don't need to know now, and even if you do know, it's useless to you. You just need to remember, don't touch these seals. Once these old bastards are released, the consequences will be unimaginable. Lin Feng nodded slowly. There was no need to doubt the Elder of Heavenly Secrets' words. Moreover, they were all Saint King realm existences, and after such a long time, they had probably become spirits long ago. Lin Feng secretly wiped his sweat. If he had really fearlessly barged in, he would have been eaten like a snack. This 10,000-bone scorpion was truly terrifying. But Junior still has a question. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold, and he said seriously, currently, many people in the kingdom of Maru are affected by the 10,000-bone scorpion. A strange power seems to have entered their bodies, making them brave and ruthless, and their personalities have become quite violent. Is there such a thing? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets was slightly suspicious. Yes, I've already investigated it, and it should be close to the truth. Lin Feng's expression was solemn. If this matter was not resolved, the kingdom of Maru would be in trouble. After pondering for a while, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets nodded and said, "It might be because the seals have been loosened. In these few years, the demon race has been restless and eager to make a move. The third war of liches and demons is not far away. In addition, the demon race held a commander competition a while ago. The battle between Saint King realm existences might have affected the kingdom of Maru and triggered the 10,000-bone scorpion." I see. Lin Feng nodded. This change in the kingdom of Maru was indeed a change that only happened in these few years. Perhaps it was just as the Elder of Heavenly Secrets said. Fortunately, there was nothing major at the moment, just a little warlike factor. It was not a big deal. Compared to the third war of liches and demons that was about to start, that was a really big deal, and it concerned the entire Douling world. Senior, last time, you mentioned that the third war of liches and demons would start because of me. Lin Feng was slightly hesitant. Is this true? You don't believe me? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets smiled faintly. It's not that I don't believe you. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. It's just that I'm just a nameless junior. How could I be involved in such a huge calamity and even be the instigator? It was hard to believe. No matter how he thought about it, he had not done anything. In fact, he had been wandering around the human territory and seemed to have nothing to do with the wizard race and demon race. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets looked at Lin Feng. I just want to ask you, are you willing to protect the human race? Chapter 1174. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He knew what the Elder of Heavenly Secrets meant. He had vaguely mentioned it the last time they met. He was an Emperor constellation. A general success was built on thousands of bones. With an Emperor constellation, your life is destined to be extraordinary. Calamities will be everywhere. If you survive, your achievements will be extraordinary. But if you die, you'll not be able to escape. There can only be one Emperor constellation. These words were still deeply engraved in his mind. According to the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, he would decide the life and death of the human race. I will do my best. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. Perhaps his strength was so insignificant in this calamity and war, but he also wanted to take responsibility. Because he was a human born in the Vermilion Bird continent. On that continent, there were clansmen who had the same blood as him, warriors who had the same skin color as him. Standing on the side of righteousness and fighting alongside the human race was a heavy responsibility that he could not shirk. And in terms of love, Yuma and Qianqian were his true loves. The 9 provinces was also their homeland, including Shi Jixin, Jinji, Lady Nangong. On this continent, he had many friends, husband and wife, brothers, and even many favors. Disregarding everything else, just the Elder of Heavenly Secrets in front of him was already something that he owed him far too much. As long as the Elder of Heavenly Secrets opened his mouth, he would not say no. Moreover, once the human clan was exterminated, the sorcerer clan and the ancient clan would feel the cold together, and they would be put in a passive position. Once the battle between the sorcerer clan and the demon clan ended, and the demon clan won a great victory, one could imagine that the sorcerer clan would really destroy the human clan and eliminate the weeds at their roots. The kingdom of Maru would also not be spared. Good. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets' eyes were burning. I did not misjudge you. As an emperor, you must have the domineering aura to look down on the world. If you shrink back, the heart of an emperor will dim. What awaits you will be endless calamities and disasters. Only by cutting through the thorns and opening a bloody path, opening the sealed door of the heavenly path, will you truly have a way out. His words were spoken. When it fell into Lin Feng's ears, it lingered for 3 feet. Every word of the Elder of Heavenly Secrets was priceless advice and had a deep meaning. Senior, please lead the way. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said seriously. To find someone. Elder Tianji's dim eyes flashed with light. In this unpredictable war, you need a helper, and he will be your most reliable left hand in the future. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Who? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets' white hair fluttered as his voice slowly resounded. Emperor of the human race, Shun. Nanlu State. Second senior brother, King Ju, is participating, King Han said seriously. Is that so? As expected, you're unwilling to be left out. King Lu smiled valiantly. Do you want to snipe? King Han's eyes shone. No need. King Lu raised his hand and said lightly, Fourth junior brother has a calm personality. He has his own reasons for choosing this time to participate. Furthermore, he has always been neutral, so there is no need to provoke him. Furthermore, King Lu glanced at King Han and King Brown and shook his head. Other than me, the two of you are no match for him. King Han frowned slightly. I'm just afraid that he will side with King Yin. After all, King Ju is very respectful towards eldest senior brother Shun. Don't worry, our enemy is not King Ju. King Lu's eyes flashed with a hint of calmness. This War of the Throne is not as simple as controlling the southern region. Even if the cultivators who enter the final battle are unable to ascend to the throne, they will still have the right to speak. Having another King Ju is not a bad thing. There is news that the Tsai society has been getting restless recently. King Han and King Brown's expressions changed. Zhou Bufan is about to take action? Should be. King Lu's expression was serious. However, he is the leader of the 8-region alliance after all. It is impossible for him to participate in the competition. The Tsai society alone is not much of a threat. After all, they are not as powerful as King Yin. What I'm most concerned about is another force. King Han and King Brown exchanged glances. The latter hesitated and said, The legendary bandit Cook. King Lu shook his head. He has disappeared for a long time. What I'm concerned about is a powerful aura. I can vaguely feel it, but it seems to be there. I'm not sure. King Lu's eyes flashed. If this force participates in the competition, the southern region will be thrown into chaos. In a luxurious restaurant. Master, when do you plan to take action? Lam Tok T's eyes were burning. What's the hurry? It's still early. The Holy Lord of Human Demon chuckled. He was clearly in a good mood. He picked up his wine cup and drained it in one gulp. He hugged the beautiful woman in his arms and played with her soft breasts. He looked pleased with himself. I'm afraid there will be too many variables. Lam Tok T frowned slightly. The Holy Lord of Human Demon's mouth twitched. It would be stupid to expose my strength too early. After all, my identity is sensitive. If I expose myself too early, I might be boycotted by them. That would be troublesome. With these cowards in the southern region, who can stop me in the competition for the throne? What I want now is a name. A chance to prove myself. The Holy Lord of Human Demon wrinkled his nose in disdain. With his strength, was it difficult for him to rule the southern region? In an era without a holy lord, he was already alone. It was difficult for him to find a match in the human region. All he wanted was a chance to prove himself. Otherwise, what was the point of having an empty shell? But Master, Lam Tok T's expression changed slightly. Enough. Stop talking nonsense. The Holy Lord of Human Demon waved his hand and coldly interrupted. I know you're worried about that brat Lin Feng. What's there to worry about? No matter how mighty he is in the Yellow Crane continent, I can crush him like an ant. Let's talk about this after I truly take control of the southern region. For now, I'll let him live a little longer. Lam Tok T still wanted to persuade him, but the Holy Lord of Human Demon frowned and coldly snorted. Lam Tok T's expression changed slightly. He felt helpless, but there was nothing he could do. The Kingdom of Meru. After returning from the Water Curtain Cave, Lin Feng felt the pressure on his shoulders. Before, he had only fought to protect his family. But now, he had to shoulder the fate of the entire human race. How big a change was this? However, he had no choice but to go with the flow. Although the road ahead was long and filled with difficulties, but if there's danger, there'll be opportunities. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Senior wouldn't lie to me. What he said must be true. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng couldn't help but recall the Elder of Heavenly Secrets' final words, and his heart surged. You get what you pay for. The heavens are fair. As long as you pay the price, the heavens can see what you want. Lin Feng let out a soft breath. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets had not said it explicitly, but just like when they first met, the hint was very clear. What did he want? In truth, it was very simple. He wanted his family to be reunited and be happy. Back then, he had resolutely stepped onto this path for the sake of home. Now, he had crossed many mountains and rivers, but the obsession in his heart had not changed. What he wanted the most right now was still the existence of home. He wanted to save his father and find Xiao. There was also Duo, who had gone into hibernation, to help him. This was his responsibility. Big brother, how is it? Lin Yun's eyes were filled with hope. Coming back to his senses, Lin Feng looked at Lin Yun. After some slight hesitation, he still did not speak of the secret of the 10,000 Bone Empire. It was not that he did not want to tell his younger brother, but there was no need to make him worry. With his younger brother's strength, coming into contact with this kind of information would only cause unnecessary worry. I can't go in. Lin Yun stilled, his expression turning grave. We must seal off the entire range of the 10,000 Bone Empire. That place is very dangerous. We must not step into the border. Lin Feng's expression was serious. According to his estimates, other than himself, any other martial artist in the Kingdom of Meru, including his younger brother, would find it difficult to resist that terrifying illusion if they stepped into the 10,000 Bone Empire. Big brother, is there no way this time? Lin Yun's face was filled with worry. For now, no. Lin Feng nodded. Seeing Lin Yun's worried expression, he couldn't help but smile and pat his shoulder. But the situation is not as bad as you think. Based on my investigation of the 10,000 Bone Empire, this is only an isolated incident. There is no need to worry too much. An isolated incident? Lin Yun sneered. Yes, it has to do with the movements of the surrounding Yao race. It should improve after a while. Lin Feng nodded and said, but for safety reasons, it would be better to first evacuate the 2 counties near the 10,000 Bone Empire and let the people move. It will be better. All right, then I will arrange it, big brother. Lin Yun nodded and did not say more. He had always listened to Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng made a sound of agreement and said with a smile, don't worry, with me here, nothing will happen to the Kingdom of Meru. Of course, big brother, you are the guardian of the Kingdom of Meru. People worship you like a god. Lin Yun smiled and continued, every household has a statue of you, big brother. They pray from 9 to 5 and pray for blessings. I'm even wondering if I should have a statue of you at home. Lin Feng was so angry that he laughed. You even dare to laugh at your big brother. Go. Lin Yun smiled as he ran away. Their laughter instantly eased the atmosphere, making it seem joyous and harmonious. Life in the Kingdom of Meru was peaceful and warm. It was very happy. However, this kind of happiness was not inevitable. It needed to be protected with absolute strength. After spending a few warm days with his family, Lin Feng knew that it was time to leave, although he was very reluctant. Lindaga, be careful. Qin Wanru was very reluctant to part with him and reminded him with concern. Don't worry, I will. Lin Feng hugged his wife gently and felt the love of the beauty in his arms. He looked at Wudong. Take good care of Master's wife, understand? Yes, Master. Wudong said respectfully. All right, don't be reluctant. It's not the first time. Lin Feng smiled at Lin Shui'er. I'm not bringing Shua. Lin Shui'er pouted. Next time, wait for Big Brother to come back. Lin Feng smiled and caressed her little head. Although she had grown up to be slender and elegant, Shu'er was still that little girl with a braid in his heart. Now that the southern region was in turmoil, it was not appropriate to bring Shu'er there. Moreover, he was about to set off to the wilderness to search for the ancient Feng clan. He would not be able to take care of her. Pinky promise. Lin Shu'er stretched out her little finger. Lin Feng smiled helplessly, but could only go with Shu'er. Everyone laughed. Soon, they finished saying their goodbyes. Except for Yuma. Everyone else would stay in the kingdom of Maru. Under everyone's reluctant gazes, Lin Feng smiled and waved his hand. He entered the transmission channel and left with a flash of light. The short and relaxing days were over. What was left? It was the beginning of the challenge. Today is Xiao Xiao's birthday. Happy birthday to yourself, haha. Chapter 1175. He returned to the Lin clan in Sherluo County. After a few days of work, the relocation of the Qin clan was almost complete. One had to admit that the clan leader, Lin Jun, was very efficient. The Qin Chamber of Commerce quickly took root in the Qianluo district. The current Lin clan was not only rich, but also powerful. The strongest force in the Qianluo district, the Wu clan, had been suppressed by the Lin clan and had nowhere to go. The former top three in the Qianluo district, the Evil Dragon Gang and the Verdant Cloud Brothel, had long disappeared. With the rise of Lin Feng, he had attracted many independent warriors. The current Lin clan could be said to have officially entered the ranks of the strongest clans in Sherluo County. They were strong enough to compete with those giants. In fact, no one would be so ignorant as to provoke the Lin clan. Who didn't know of Lin Feng's fame? In terms of power, he was the vice president of the Union of Artificers. In terms of strength, he had killed 3 experts of the ancient clans. In Sherluo County, even the governor, Wang Mo, had to be respectful to Lin Feng, let alone ordinary warriors. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Lin clan was now the strongest force in Sherluo County. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to the heavens. Okay, then I'll have to trouble the governor to take care of me, Lin Feng said with a smile. You're welcome. It's nothing. Wang Mo bowed and flattered. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Then, he left with Yuma. With Wang Mo watching over the Lin clan and the Qin Chamber of Commerce, there wouldn't be any major problems. In Sherluo County, Wang Mo's position was equivalent to that of a leader. He was in charge of all affairs. As for the saint behind him, Shikala, he only controlled the general direction and wouldn't interfere too much. Although Wang Mo was a despicable person, he was truly a despicable person. There was one good thing about this kind of person. As long as you were stronger than him, he would be loyal to you and would not be disloyal. He was very smart. After settling the family affairs, Lin Feng went to the Union of Artificers. Firstly, Yuma would not follow him into the wilderness. Instead, he would stay here to cultivate and refine weapons with Lady Nangong. Secondly, he needed Lady Nangong's help. As the president of the Union of Artificers, Lady Nangong had great power and connections. You want to find Emperor Shun? Lady Nangong sneered. Yes, where can I find it? Lin Feng asked. Lady Nangong gently shook her head. I can help you with other things, but there is nothing I can do to find Emperor Shun. Lady Nangong frowned and mumbled, If King Yin is here, I can help you inform him, but King Yin is currently in Peach Blossom. Peach Blossom? Lin Feng was surprised. Madame Nangong nodded and said, Emperor Yao's cultivation place is only accessible to his disciples and grand disciples. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Is Emperor Shun there? Probably, Lady Nangong said softly. Emperor Shun is the replacement for Emperor Yao. Even if he abdicates, he should still be in Peach Blossom. Lin Feng nodded. How can I go there? I don't know. Lady Nangong shook her head. Lin Feng frowned. He had to meet Emperor Shun. This was the first thing that Elder Heavenly Secrets had asked him to do. Now that he had taken on this responsibility, the heavy responsibility of protecting the human race, he had to answer Elder Heavenly Secrets' words. He had to do his best, right? Lady Nangong might not know, but Emperor Yao's disciples and grand disciples should know. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. President, do you know who Emperor Yao's disciples are? Can you find them now? Lady Nangong hesitated. I don't know much about the relationship network in the world of saints. I only know that the kings of the 9 states of the southern region are all Emperor Yao's disciples. I don't know anything else. Kings of the 9 states? Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He smiled. Thank you, President. Goodbye. With that, he disappeared like a gust of wind, causing Madame Nangong to feel rather helpless. Kings of the 9 states. King Yin was one of them. There were also 8 other kings of the 9 states. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. King Lu's figure appeared in his mind. Relatively speaking, he was slightly more familiar with King Lu. Whoosh! With a flash, he quickly entered the teleportation point of the Union of Artificers. He skillfully operated it. With a flash of white light, he left. South Lu State. With Lin Feng's current strength, it was not difficult to find a person, especially a saint. Even though South Lu State was vast and had abundant resources, and was the largest state in the Vermilion Bird Continent, as long as he could find any saint, he would be able to find King Lu. It was that simple. The moment Lin Feng exited the teleportation point, he found the first saint. I didn't expect it to be so easy. Lin Feng smiled. His eyes lit up as he sped away. Even though he was far away, he could sense it clearly. As he sped, Lin Feng's aura locked onto that saint. However, his eyes brightened. Lin Feng was surprised. There's more than one. The saint whose aura locked onto first was the strongest. Naturally, he could sense it clearly. The other saints he sensed later were slightly weaker, but there were many of them. Lin Feng muttered to himself. He could not help but laugh. It was effortless. That's good. The more people there are, the easier it will be to find King Lu. Lin Feng smiled. He did not mind at all. To him, these saints, whom he could only look up to before, and ordinary martial artists now, there was no difference. Hidden in the city, the Tsai Society's influence spread throughout the entire South region. It was the strongest underground force in the South region. It had branches in all 9 states. For example, the Tsai Society in the Yellow Crane State, the White Society in the Vermilion Bird State, and so on. In fact, the Tsai Society did not only exist in the South region. It existed in all the major regions of the human world. It was so strong that even though King Lu knew of its existence, he still turned a blind eye. Even when Emperor Yao was around, he did not intend to eradicate the Tsai Society. At this moment, the 9 saints of the Tsai Society were gathered together for a regular meeting. However, as the president of the South region, Yu Fan frowned slightly. He felt a chill down his spine. He did not know what was wrong. President, a few saints called out softly. What is it? Yu Fan regained his senses and asked. Are you okay, President? I'm fine. Yu Fan waved his hand and said, continue. Yes. Yu Fan's expression was ugly. He still felt uncomfortable all over. It felt as if someone was spying on him in the dark. It was extremely uncomfortable. Even his eyelids could not help but twitch. He was very upset. Lin Feng stopped. He looked at the ordinary castle-shaped stone house in front of him. It was not big, and the structure was not surprising. It looked ordinary no matter how he looked at it. However, there were a total of 10 saints' auras in this stone house. They were all early stage, mid-stage, and even one of them was an advanced stage saint. They were actually hiding in this inconspicuous stone house. Underground, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He could clearly sense it. The people in the stone house were ordinary martial artists. Their strength was in the Star Sea or Star Lord level. There were very few Star Sector level martial artists. However, there were countless powerful martial artists gathered under the stone house. Even the weakest of them had the strength of a Star Sector level. The most powerful ones were the 10 saints. He could sense more than 10,000 auras. It was a very strong force. It's so mysterious. It doesn't seem like it can be seen, Lin Feng said softly. There is no need to be so secretive in a normal gathering of saints. He looked around. This was the entrance of a busy street. That's interesting. Lin Feng smiled thoughtfully. He stepped forward and entered the stone house. Jewelry shop. Lin Feng looked around. There were many customers choosing jewelry. Compared to other buildings, this stone house was not big. However, it was still quite luxurious if it was limited to the jewelry shop. There was one floor inside, one floor outside, one floor above, one floor below. This jewelry shop was obviously just a cover. It sold goods to the outside, but inside, it was a staircase. There were a few expressionless guards guarding the underground entrance. It seemed that there were some special conditions to enter. Who cares? Lin Feng looked indifferent. He walked casually, not caring at all. He walked directly to the underground entrance. He did not have the time to waste with them. Stop. The guard was expressionless, but there was a murderous intent in his eyes. Up the road. Oh. Lin Feng was slightly stunned. This murderous intent was obviously not something an ordinary martial artist could have. But he was just a guard? Go away. Lin Feng said indifferently and waved his hand. In an instant, the force swept past like sand and stones. Those guards groaned and were directly bounced away. Dozens of people seemed to be blown away by a gust of wind. They all fainted in an instant. The sudden change in the situation made the customers who were choosing jewelry dumbfounded. However, Lin Feng completely ignored them. He had already held back. Otherwise, they would not have simply fainted. Whoosh! His figure flashed and entered the underground passage. Bang! 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 He walked forward. The heavily locked doors were smashed. One by one, the murderous martial artists were knocked unconscious. Lin Feng was like a gust of wind. Nothing could stop him. But how mysterious. A mere passage is heavily guarded. There are as many as 4 or 5 doors. The defense is so cautious. Moreover, every martial artist here has such a strong murderous intent. Lin Feng thought to himself. He did not stop at all. He seemed to understand something in his heart. He broke through, and the dark passage in front of him flashed with light. Boom! The flame in Lin Feng's hand flared up. After the last door was smashed open, everything in front of him suddenly became clear. A huge jade palace appeared in front of him. At this time, countless martial artists were already waiting solemnly. Shocking murderous intent was boiling and spread throughout the entire hall. It was suffocating. However, there was no sound. It was unusually quiet. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He slowly stepped out of the door. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, white, and black. There were a total of 9 colors. They formed the veins of the entire hall. They were clearly visible, and the 10 saints' auras that he had sensed were in the palace. Among them, the most eye-catching one was a man. He was wearing a striped uniform formed by 9 colors. He was extremely special. His aura was the strongest among the 10 saints. Advanced Saint. Which friend has graced my colorful clothes club with your presence? You fans' eyes shone brightly. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.